putting, like, out.
All right, guys, have a good show.
I want my legacy to be that they know they screwed with the wrong guy. In the United States of America, you have the right to think freely. You have the right to be whatever you want in this United States. What I care about is that you have the freedom in this country to live your life as a free, rugged individualist. And I am at war with anybody that would tell you that you don't have a right to be a free man.
Carrying on the legacy of Andrew Breitbart. This is Breitbart News Daily with your host, Alex Marlow, on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to Breitbart News Daily, live from CPAC Day 2, 2019. Should be an exciting one today. I will tell you that it was an effort getting through security. It does sap your energy a little bit when you're greeted by a massive, intimidating security line. But reason being is Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, is going to be here today. We'll try to bring that to you live. I'm sure whoever is hosting when he slides in there. But hopefully, those of you who are planning on going to CPAC today, you are making some, you are allowing for a little extra time. Not to mention, global warming continues to plague the D.C. area with hail and snow overnight, even though we enter March, which is not uncommon. But remember, we had our first major snow of the year on November. So the winter continues to drag on in the era of climate change. All brought about this incredible cold, all brought about cow farts, which made it warming first, and now it's cooling, etc. Today is a big day in the history of Breitbart because this is the 7th year, I guess, anniversary, but that seems to have positive connotation since Andrew Breitbart passed away at the age of 43. He would have been 50 as of last month. And I think his legacy grows and grows. We have a story on the front page of Breitbart News. It's the lead story currently. And you can go there, leave a comment, anything about Andrew's legacy. But it is pretty incredible the amount of influence Andrew has had over not just CPAC, but the conservative movement in general, and the tactics that people have used in order to fight. And we picked out a quote this year. We typically don't do this, but we decided this year we'd put a quote out there. I want to read this to you guys. I'm fighting back against years and years and years of the cultural and the political left, telling people to sit down and shut up. And I'm finally telling a bunch of people, whether it be a conservative or a libertarian on a college campus, whether it be an actor or a director in Hollywood who wants to make movies that represent his worldview, I'm saying I'm going to lead the charge, and you want to follow me? Fine. And there are people who are following me. I want to make things equal. I want people to have a free and open voice. And that's the essence of what we're fighting about, freedom, the freedom to speak your mind, the actual pursuit of equality, not the pursuit of putting your thumb on the scale for those who are anointed by the political left. And he really understood the threat, and he understood the tactics. He gave us the tools to fight and the wisdom to identify the enemy and when to use which tool. I owe everything to Andrew. I think so much the conservative movement does as well. So a sad and somber day here at CPAC. And I don't know if there's been a lot of overlap, but we honor Andrew today. We got another quote. Here's Andrew with Reverend C.L. Bryant, the producer Paul picked out, talking about the race card. Let's see what we got here, Paul. 9A, play it.
One of the most effective tactics that the left has is the ability to accuse its opponents of being a racist. It's an impossible negative to dispel. It immediately puts somebody on the defensive, and it sends a message to the audience. You shouldn't take seriously what's coming out of that person's mouth because they've been degraded as being a racist. In the era of my conservatism, which is the last 20 years of my life, I've tried to make the argument that that's an affirmation of precisely the opposite, that if in this country being accused of a racist is the worst thing that caused people to shut up, doesn't that mean that racism has been dispelled to a huge degree, that to be accused of it, the American people recoil and don't want to be in your proximity? If racism were the default in this culture and somebody accused you of being a racist, wouldn't you say, yeah, I am, just as is the majority, you're going to deal with it? It is used because those who wield it know how effective it is. That is the primary reason. It is the most effective tool that the Democrat media complex has.
Yeah, it's so good. And I mean, it's so prescient that he knew this was coming. He knew that the race card was the best weapon the left has, because intellectually, they don't have the best weapons. Intellectually, they've got a smear campaign. That's what they do. They run hoaxes. They run smears. That is the attitude of the political left at this point in time in the United States of America. And Andrew saw that a mile away. And he notes that we are not giving ourselves enough credit as a country, that if racism was really the threat that people on the left claim it is, then racism would have been the default. Now we have these wild accusations of racism that cannot be backed up. One hoax hate crime after the next, one false accusation of racism after the next, and it goes into the news of the day. And I want to play again. Paul, do we have the Rashida Tlaib clip again? Yes, we do. Let's play 10A. This is her just setting the stage. We played this yesterday, but I got to play it again. This is from Wednesday. Go ahead there, Paul.
Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they aren't racist. And it is insensitive that someone even say it's the fact that someone would actually use a prop, a black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself. Donald Trump is setting
Mr. Chairman, I ask that her words be taken down.
President, I reclaim my time.
Mr. Chairman,
setting a precedent.
Mr. Chairman,
the highest office can be
Mr. Chairman, the rules are clear.
Activity. Cover up and hold on to business assets to break campaign finance laws and constitutional clauses. What we have here, Mr. Chairman, is criminal conduct and the pursuit of the highest public office by Mr. Cohen and Individual 1. I hope that the gravity of this situation hits everyone in this body and in Congress and across this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the rest of my time.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that her words, when she's referring to an individual member of this body, be taken down and stricken from the record. I'm sure she didn't intend to do this, but if anyone knows my record as it relates, it should be you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, this is something where I let that play out because Mark Meadows has does not have a racist bone in his body. He, in fact, is good friends with John Lewis, who's the chairman, who is a civil rights icon as well, and a Democrat chairman of this committee. And they have an incredible rapport that's well known in Washington. Maybe not to Rashida Tlaib, who I guess lives in a bubble of some kind. But to suggest that Mark Meadows is racist is it's just a bridge too far. There's zero intellectual credibility behind it. But here's the key here: that she said a black woman is a prop. Is that not in and of itself racism? How could you call a black woman? I'm sorry. Elijah Cummings was the chairman. So is a producer Greg. So is he friends with John Lewis or Elijah Cummings? I'm now getting this confused. Okay, so all right, so I apologize for that, but you guys see the point here is that Meadows is not a guy. There's no evidence of Meadows' racism. The evidence is that Meadows is a guy who is incredibly fundamentally decent to people of color. He brought a woman, Lynn Patton, who works for President Trump, has for many years, was someone who would testify on the president's behalf that he is not racist, and yet the fact that Lynn Patton is called a prop by Rashida Tlaib, not called a racist. But that doesn't stop the fact that Rashida Tlaib continues to get lots and lots of attention and press. And in the meantime, we've got folks like Ilhan Omar, who is doubling and tripling down on her anti-Semitism. And the latest example that we've documented at Breitbart News is that she is accusing those who are pro-Israel Americans of allegiance to a foreign country. Allegiance to a foreign country. You guys believe that? So this is something that is a anti-Semitic trope that has been over the years. There's tons of evidence. Joel Pollack documents this at Breitbart.com. But this is a dog whistle. This is something that has been used throughout time in order to try to make it so to delegitimize Jewish people. And he even knows Jonathan Chait, who's a left-wing writer for it was either the New Yorker or New York Magazine. New York Magazine. Jonathan Chait, a left-of-center writer. He has been skeptical of accusations of anti-Semitism of Ilhan Omar, but he does note that this is in the past, saying that folks who support Israel, the one Jewish state on the planet, as having allegiance to a foreign country is a common anti-Semitic trope. This is the latest example of Ilhan Omar doing this, and that you see these examples of hatred coming from the left, in particular these two new Muslim congresswomen, and I'm not saying they speak for all Muslims, but they certainly do not represent Muslims very well, in my viewpoint. And if they do, I'd love to hear from you. If you're a Muslim and you're listening, and you think that using these clear anti-Jewish dog whistles, accusing people of being racist, or using acts of racism without any evidence, accusing folks like Mark Meadow of racism, saying that calling a black woman a prop. If you're comfortable with this stuff, I would love to hear from you at 866-95-PATRIOT. That is the state of play right now. That is the pattern. And then you see the Rolling Stone magazine having on their cover this month a bunch of Democratic women, and that is you've got Ilhan Omar on it with Nancy Pelosi and AOC, and it's a to bring it back full circle here, Andrew called it with him noting that the use of the race card is their most powerful tool. They've wielded it to perfection, and it stops now. We're fighting back. Ed, Minnesota, line 1, welcome to the show this morning. You're first up.
Hey, how's it going this morning?
Good.
Listen, it's time for Republicans, conservatives, white people who aren't racist to stand up and say no. As a black man, I know full well that every white person out there is not racist. And although that is just an obvious statement, the Democrats / socialists, they count on conservatives or whites, I'm sorry, I just have to be blunt, not standing up and fighting. You know, that charge is a very hard charge to come back from. However, if you don't stand up as a collective, and what I mean by that is every member of Congress who is conservative, as a voice, as one unity, like the Democrats do, you know how they all pull together and say, Donald Trump's a racist and all this bullcrap, then these people just get away with this. They have to stand up. They have to say, from this point on, we will not allow these socialists, these liberals, these race baiters to label us as racist, and they have to stand up and say no, and from that point on, not accept that charge. I'm going to take your comments off the air.
No, Ed, I know I appreciate the emotion because it's an emotional topic, but hang with me. I want you to respond to Andrew's discussion of racism from I forget exactly when that clip is from, but it's at least 7 years old because he passed away 7 years ago. Today, are you the fact that there were at least some folks with big platforms like Andrew Breitbart who are pointing this out, and it seems like we've only gone backwards since then? I think Ed is getting confused with his radio here. But okay, Ed, I appreciate the call. 866-95-PATRIOT. That is the problem with keeping your radio on too loud. So I was hearing me and Ed have a conversation when I was trying to have a conversation with Ed. That is not the point. All right, number's 866-95-PATRIOT. Play 10B here, Mr. Paul. This is where the Meadows-Tlaib clip continues, and it does not go to a good place.
Would you like to rephrase that statement, Mr. Tlaib?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can actually read it from here. Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, that just because someone has a person of color, a black person working for them, does not mean they are racist. And it is insensitive that someone would even say racist, say it is racist in itself, and to use a black woman as a prop to prove it otherwise. And I can submit this for the record. If a colleague is thinking that that's what I'm saying, I'm just saying that's what I believe to have happened. And if, as a person of color in this committee, that's how I felt at that moment, and I wanted to express that. But I am not calling the gentleman, Mr. Meadows, a racist for doing so. I'm saying that in itself, it is a racist act.
Well, I hope not, Mr. Chairman, because I need to be clear on this particular. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Meadows, wait a minute.
I've defended you with false accusations.
Mr. Meadows, I'm the chair.
Yes, sir, you are.
Thank you.
Right.
I will clear this up. Now, Ms. Tlaib, I want to make sure I understand. You were not intending to call Mr. Meadows a racist, is that right?
No, Mr. Chairman, I do not call Mr. Meadows a racist.
No,
I am trying, as a person of color, Mr. Chairman, just to express myself and how I felt at that moment. And so, just for the record, that's what was my intention.
That's the key point. So she gets caught. She gets caught dead to rights, calling a guy who's not a racist, calling a black woman a prop, which is, in my opinion, racist, and then suggesting that bringing the black woman to testify on behalf of the president is a racist act. So just a total cluster by Rashida Tlaib. She gets caught, so she says, well, this is how I felt as a woman of color. Does that not reveal all you need to know about the Democratic left and their worldview at this moment? That she retreats to my truth. She retreats to her feelings. Bad stuff. By the way, I apologize for confusing Elijah Cummings and John Lewis, which I'm sure the monitors of the show will regard as an act of racism in and of itself. Now, Mark Meadows is friends with Elijah Cummings, who is the chairman of the committee. So my bad there. Apologies to everyone offended. Mike in Georgia, line 2. Mike, good morning. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning, Alex. I just wanted to bring across the point. I work in a public school system in support capacity, and, I visit classrooms. And I just want to tell our listeners out there that if they think their kid is not being indoctrinated in high school as far as teaching the racist narrative or teaching anti-Trump or anti-Republican ideals, they need to think twice. Just yesterday I was in a history class, and the teacher made the classroom listen on their cell phone to the full 30-minute opening statement by Michael Cohen on CNN, and saying, you people are adults now, you'll be voting next year, and you need to listen up and pay attention. Things like, and then you'll hear it in English classes, you'll see it in the tests, questions, or in debate class on the topic. You'll see it in the rebuttals that the teacher will give, to a student about racism in America, or roundtable discussions in English classes about racism in America. Basically, it's all like we have a problem with racism in this country, and this is what the kids are listening to at the public school level, and it's just infuriating to hear it. But
so Mike, talk to me about, because the acts of overt racism are so limited, and you know this because in the wokest movie of all time, Black Klansman, it ends with clips of Spike Lee interspersing footage of David Duke and Donald Trump and the Charlottesville protests, and the person who was killed at the Charlottesville protest was a white woman. So this is the greatest act of racial injustice in modern time, according to the woke left, and the one person who was killed was a white woman who was protesting, who was there on behalf defending blacks. Presumably that was her worldview. And so if we are lacking these sorts of examples of anti-black violence, we're seeing one hoax hate crime after the next. We're seeing so few examples of actual racism in the country. What's happening here is the schools are teaching people that there's this latent racism, that exists underneath the surface. So how do they present that to children who are largely brought up in a colorblind society to then now see race?
Well, I'll give you another example, okay? Let's say, it was after the gubernatorial race, right, and in Florida, where the debate teacher was saying, look at this. They elected a governor that's an open racist. He said that we shouldn't be monkeying around, and then with the way we do the finances of the state, and also he mentioned that Cindy Hyde-Smith lady with the lynching in the front row. This is just the generation of teachers that we're dealing with right now. So it's up to the parents of the students to make sure that they have conversations about this very thing, and just to see what they're hearing in class, and straighten it out.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Mike. Appreciate it. 866-95-PATRIOT. And this goes along with what happened with Michael Cohen, who immediately led in his testimony against President Trump, which continued yesterday. Yesterday was a behind closed doors session. So there is a clip of the president talking about it at his press conference in Hanoi. We'll get to that a little bit in just a little bit. But Cohen coming out of the gate saying Trump is a racist, I really think shreds his credibility. I really do. If he had said that I don't regard the president as a racist, I regard the president as a guy who was a capable leader, I think he would have a lot more credibility. He would have looked a lot less petty. He looked very petty, saying that a guy he worked for so many years was this racist. And what are the examples? I don't have any. It's so weak that this is where the left is, and they're getting glorified. Rolling Stone gives the literal rock star treatment to Ilhan Omar, who says that those of you who are supportive of Israel, the one Jewish state on planet Earth, are being influenced by a foreign government. That is clear anti-Semitism. Even the liberal left is starting to acknowledge it, and we're going to keep pointing it out, keep hammering that home. Let's talk to... How about Adrian in Florida? I think disagrees, so they get in quickly. Hi, Adrian. How's it going?
Hey, what's going on? I listen to your show all the time.
Thank you.
I am a Democrat, but I'm not one of those haters who thinks all Republicans or conservatives are racist. So I just want to throw that out there right now.
Thank you.
I do kind of think that what Meadows did was he did use her as a prop, though, because the second when Michael Cohen said that he thought that, Trump was a con man, a racist, and a crook, or whatever the third thing was, Meadows immediately went looking for the first black person he could find to use as a prop for that and say, hey, look at this woman here that he employed. That's a prop. He did exactly what Representative Tlaib said he did. He used her as a prop.
Okay, so Adrian, I disagree, but what I want to hear from you is, what do you recommend for folks like me who have the only thing in my record on race is that my first job was working for Larry Elder, or my first job in this movement, a black man. The New York Times Magazine wrote that I have a record of promoting minorities and women, and yet I preside over the racist Breitbart. And so, I'm only citing myself as an example. It's everyone on the right is called a racist at some point or another. So how do we effectively defend ourselves? It seems like a good way to do it is to find character witnesses who are people of color. That doesn't sound like a prop. That sounds like a great way to defend yourself. So if you regard it as a prop, then what tactics do we have at our disposal to address this most heinous of charges, that we are racist?
Well, in cases like that, if you let your record speak for itself, you don't have to go and find, I got this black friend over here who knows me. Just let your reputation and your record speak for itself. Like I say, I listen to you all the time.
Sure.
I don't think you're a racist. And there are other conservatives and Republicans out there. I don't think John Kasich is a racist. In all honesty, I don't even think Donald Trump is a racist. Not a lot, but there's some Trump supporters who are racist. The crazy guys up in Virginia a couple of years ago with the Charlottesville thing, yeah. But I'm not saying that all of them are like that or all you guys are like that. Just let your record speak for itself. Like Donald Trump is trying to let his record speak for itself. Like, the lowest black unemployment rate thing, the lowest Hispanic unemployment rate, all the things like that's fine. But every now and then he'll say these dumb things and it doesn't help.
So is there, Adrian, and I appreciate that you don't think Donald Trump is racist. Are there arguments, what are the arguments that you hear the most that suggest that Trump is a racist? Because he's called a racist consistently, despite what you mentioned. You mentioned a good list of stuff that prove, first of all, there's not concrete examples, there's no tapes, there's not character witnesses who are black individuals who are out there touting that the president is a racist. The issue is that he's just called a racist because what? Because Charlottesville, he said they were good people on both sides, and they were bad people on both sides. That's all I'm hearing, and that context is we all know it's trimmed. I understand debating the exact word choice of the president, but that can't be it for a guy who's in his 70s and has been in public life for 40 years.
Right. Like, I don't know. Like, it's everything is super hyped up now with how one person gets called this, okay, then he's that forever. Or, a person gets called that, okay, well, they're that forever, regardless of what they've done over the course of their life and everything. And, you know, I don't like Donald Trump, but I'm not going to say that he's all these crazy things and, like, it's not fair. Unless you have a videotape of this. You know, like the Omarosa thing after she got fired. Oh, Donald Trump is a racist. Okay, well, I need proof. Yeah, I need to know.
Exactly. Exactamundo. Adrian, I really appreciate that you listen and that you called in. Please call back soon. We got to take a break. When we come back, more clips and calls on Breitbart News Daily.
Sirius XM Patriot 125.
All right, welcome back to Breitbart News Daily. A little bit darker tone, I guess, to start the show. We had a pretty fun show yesterday. Lots of good times here at CPAC. But I could tell you, on broadcast row here, you could hear an echo. It is so empty because, first of all, it's very early, and CPAC is a D.C., or I guess National Harbor, Maryland, becomes a party town for in the evenings, and the attrition in the morning sessions is noticeable, day 2 and day 3, and not to mention massive security lines. So if you're coming out to CPAC today, please allow time. They are anticipating huge crowds for the vice president, who speaks later in the day. We'll have a live stream up at Breitbart.com, also live on our Facebook, and it should be a good day. So lots of good stuff. Matt Boyle's on a panel yesterday. We have that up at Breitbart.com as well. Good stuff from Matt. And we've not done any hot wardrobe talk, so we're 32 minutes into the show. This is the longest we've made it at CPAC, but it starts now. The hot wardrobe talk starts now, because under my favorite suit jacket is Never Socialism line of clothing. You can see this if you're watching our live stream at Breitbart.com or on Facebook, still available at store.breitbart.com. Our best-selling series ever at Breitbart News, and that's thanks to you guys telling 10,000 friends and family members about these high-quality, made-in-America shirts, hoodies. We got the mugs going. We got the beer koozies going. Do people use a beer koozie? In the South, producer Greg says, I've crushed a number of cold ones in my day. I never slid the koozie on before doing so. So anyway, those are available for you. I guess that's not good salesmanship when I'm suggesting it's a product no one uses. But it's good stuff, high quality, made in America, and it's a great way to remind folks that this election coming up, 2020, it's probably going to be a referendum on socialism. So taking your calls on a variety of topics, the state of race discussion and race relations in America seems to be where I've taken the discussion this morning, but it's not. I'm mostly reacting to so many items in the news where everyone claiming that they are one another is racist or race baiting, and it's just terrible. It's just terrible. And Andrew Breitbart saw it coming, who passed away 7 years ago today. If you would like to leave a remembrance for Andrew, and who I think's influence grows year after year. It's the lead story at Breitbart.com. We miss you, my friend. 866-95-PATRIOT. If you'd like to join us on the show. How about we talk to Marty, Georgia, line 5. Marty, good morning. What's up?
Good morning. Man, I am so steamed and so hot, I tell you. First of all, I want to thank you for what you do. I've been listening to you, oh my gosh, since Mike Church used to be on here, and I think y'all took over for him how many years ago. But what I want to say, man, is, oh gosh, I got so much going through my I hate saying this, I'm black, and I'm a conservative, and I'm proud of it, but I'm an American first. Always been an American, and I was in the Marine Corps. And to my white brothers from another mother, and I ain't even saying that because we're Americans, you got to push back. You got to stop letting these people call you racist and then leave it alone. No, you got to push back and say, no, you don't get to call me a racist and walk away. It's not like that, because I am just sick and tired of black people thinking that any interaction between a black and a white person is racist. Donald Trump is not a racist. This all goes back to, well, when Barack Obama was running, anybody who disagreed with Barack Obama was a racist. And then if you were black and disagreed with him, you were Uncle Tom. I mean, it's just sad that we've gotten to this today. And it's the only thing the Democrats have to run on. Call you a racist, walk away because you can't defend it. And yes, defend it. Push back on them every single time, and you'll win the argument, because they have nothing after that.
Have to be such a stretch every time. Was Marty hearing me there? Because something just clicked in my. I'll just start fresh just in case. So, Marty, do you believe in Andrew Breitbart's?
Fade it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Do you believe in Andrew Breitbart's premise? So, am I on now? So we're live.
You're on.
Okay. All right. I'm rolling here. I'm rolling. Okay. So, Marty, here we go. Third time's a charm, Marty. Do you believe Andrew Breitbart's premise that if the country really was as racist country, there would be examples out in the open. Racism would abound. There would be clear examples day to day of actual acts of racism, yet one after the next we hear they're hate crime hoaxes. This is such a stretch to suggest Mark Meadows, who has black civil rights leaders in the Congress as friends and who respect him, even though they disagree politically, he's being accused of racism for bringing a black person who has worked as a longtime Trump affiliate and has known Michael Cohen and is testifying on behalf of the president. If this is what they have to go to prove that they're acts of racism, did Andrew not call this right on the money?
Yes, he did. And like you said, the other caller said it. You don't have, your record speaks for yourself. I mean, that's just crazy. We can disagree. We can disagree with a person and not be racist. I mean, it's just, it just drives me nuts that, we elected a black president. And black people make up, 17% of the population? If you want to break it down, probably 13% only vote. And we elected a black president, but we're racist. We're not racist. This country is the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, I love that, Marty, and thank you so much for listening and for calling in. Lynn Patton writes on her Instagram that today a race card was played, but not by Congressman Mark Meadows, but rather by those on the House Oversight Committee who sadly placed more credence on the word of a self-confessed convicted perjurer than that of a highly educated black woman who rose up the ranks of one of the most recognized global real estate companies in the world, spoke before 25 million people at the Republican National Convention, and now successfully oversees the largest HUD program office in the country. This is not the resume of a prop. It is, however, the resume of someone who remains completely unfazed by the criticism of others and laser focused. Good stuff. 866-95-PATRIOT. The president, who was in Hanoi, gave a press conference, and he did have one question on the Michael Cohen show trial. Let's play this one, Mr. Paul, 1E, if you'd be so kind.
I think having a fake hearing like that and having it in the middle of this very important summit is really a terrible thing. They could have made it 2 days later or next week, and it would have been even better. They would have had more time. But having it during this very important summit is sort of incredible. And he lied a lot, but it was very interesting because he didn't lie about one thing. He said no collusion with the Russian hoax. And I said, I wonder why he didn't just lie about that, too, like he did about everything else. I mean, he lied about so many different things, and I was actually impressed that he didn't say, well, I think there was collusion for this reason or that. He didn't say that. He said no collusion, and I was a little impressed by that, frankly. He could have gone all out. He only won about 95% instead of 100%. But the fact is there is no collusion, and I call it the witch hunt. This should never happen to another president. This is so bad for our country.
Yeah, it's good stuff from the president. He's able to speak very plainly and succinctly on some of these issues. And I have mulled the Hanoi summit where the president pulled out early. Here is why the president claims he pulled out. Let's play this one, 1A, Mr. Paul.
Basically, they wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that. They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all of the sanctions for that. So we continue to work, and we'll see, but we had to walk away from that particular suggestion. We had to walk away from that.
Will all the sanctions that are currently in existence remain, sir?
They're in place. I was watching, as a lot of you folks over the weeks have said, we've given up. We haven't given up anything, and frankly, I think we'll end up being very good friends with Chairman Kim and with North Korea, and I think they have tremendous potential. I've been telling everybody they have tremendous potential, unbelievable potential, but we're going to see. But it was about sanctions. I mean, they wanted sanctions lifted, but they weren't willing to do an area that we wanted.
Yeah, so this is the president's rationale, but we know he's a politician. We know that there's more to it than this. We know that Kim, in a rare press conference from top Korean officials, said that this was about the sanctions, that they wanted relief for the starving North Korean people. That makes sense, and they're negotiating over how much sanctions should be lifted to increase the flow of trade and goods, etc., into North Korea, and that's a factor that is not the lone factor. The president is also trying to get the best deal possible, proving he can walk away from a deal that he does not think is adequate. All of that makes perfect sense. Not to mention what a caller pointed out on this show yesterday, and I thought about it, and I think this is a key factor. The president is currently in a massive trade negotiation with China, which is the puppet master of North Korea. So there's a lot at play geopolitically, but here is the moment that really bothered a lot of folks on both right and left, but in particular the right. 1C, Mr. Paul.
I did speak about it, and I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen. Those prisons are rough. They're rough places, and bad things happened. But I really don't believe that he was, I don't believe he knew about it.
Did he tell you that he did not, did Kim Jong-un tell you?
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly. He knew the case very well, but he knew it later. And, you got a lot of people, a big country, a lot of people. And in those prisons and those camps, you have a lot of people. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you
But he tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word.
So he was talking about Otto Warmbier, the American who was in North Korea and was detained for no good reason and eventually died due to his treatment there. And it is heinous, and this is part of the messiness of negotiating with brutal dictators like Kim Jong-un, is that you have to legitimize them in order to get anything done. It is not a moment for virtue signaling. Unfortunately, that is part of the messiness of geopolitics, and it's painful. I don't like hearing this stuff from our president, but I don't see how going over to Kim, meeting him face to face, and treating him as though he's scum of the earth, even though he is, and he treating him that way. But that's for me to say from the cheap seats here on talk radio. For him to say that as president would defeat the purpose, and the purpose is denuclearizing the North Korean peninsula and keeping the world safer. That's the point. If he thought this is a tool to get him there, I'm willing to endure that. Many folks on the right, not so much. This was created mass hysteria in the Never Trump crowd, and I'm not with him on that one. I think even though I did not like hearing this, I don't agree with the content that Kim had nothing to do with Otto Warmbier's death. I think it's 100% has to do with Kim's culture in North Korea. I still don't see the madness that took place on Twitter and elsewhere from the Never Trump crowd. It's just not productive. It is the right-wing equivalent of virtue signaling. 866-95-Patriots will add those. So we've got now race relations. We've got the Hanoi summit. Any CPAC thoughts, anticipations, anything you saw yesterday? That's all on the docket. Let's take some more calls here. Why don't we go to Lexi, Florida, line 2. Good morning, Lexi. How are you?
Good morning. My call is concerning the earlier caller who was talking about teachers and how they're teaching students in the woke culture. It's actually really hard to be a conservative and a teacher at the same time. Especially when the schools are requiring
as being a conservative journalist, I feel your pain, but give us some more detail on that.
Okay, so a lot of teachers are friends on Facebook and stuff like that. They keep you in groups, but you can't ever post your feelings or talk about your feelings for President Trump if you voted for him. Say if you're talking and having an adult conversation with coworkers. Otherwise, they will start telling, your students, especially if you teach high school, hey, she voted for Trump or they voted for Trump, they're racist. And it's been a pretty big thing. Several teachers I know, they refuse to talk any type of politics because they're afraid of the backlash, because of people saying, you voted for Trump, you're racist. Yeah.
So
another hard thing
I got to bring something. I got to bring something new up, and I want to hear more. But you prompted me to have a new. Sure. I want to introduce a subject that I'm curious if you have any thoughts from the inside. So we stumbled upon, through our research, this Red for Ed movement, which is a movement that is a nationwide movement to community organize teachers to start essentially radicalizing the K-12 system more than it already is. And the reason why we know is a nationwide movement of community organizing teachers to radicalize K-12 more than it already is because that is what the founder of the Red for Ed movement wrote about in the Marxist Jacobin magazine. Yet the Los Angeles Times, when they saw reporting, stated that the Red for Ed is not nationwide, it's not about community organizing, and it's not so bad, nothing to see here. And I want to know, is this a factor for you yet? Are you aware of this? Have you heard of it? And is it consistent? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's everywhere. Any of the teachers groups, teachers unions, it's Red for Ed. They hide it under the premises and guise of wanting higher pay for teachers. Yes, we need higher pay. I understand that. But I won't wear Red for Ed because of the communism manifesto and everything they're talking about behind it. There's other plays. I work for a charter school, and I don't have to pay dues to a teachers union at all. There is no teachers union for charter school employees. Wow. And one of the biggest things they want you to teach as a history teacher or anything like that is U.S. history from 1945 and up. Well, what about World War II, World War I, the Civil War, the American, anything like that? They don't want you getting into details. They want the more current stuff after World War II.
Lexi, so powerful.
And it's frustrating as a teacher.
Yeah, it has to be. I got to run, but you must call me back. I would love to continue this discussion. The call boards look even better than usual right now. So if you're on the line, please hold with me. I got to run to a break. Carolyn Glick is going to join me and give me her thoughts on what's happening with the bribery charges that are coming against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. But then we will return to some of these topics after that with some more calls. So hang with me. We'll be right back. Breitbart News Daily, live from CPAC. The CPAC ghost town on Broadcast Row as people line up for the security efforts that are necessary to protect the folks here as the Vice President of the United States set to make an address later this morning. With me on the line, VIP hotline, Carolyn Glick, who is a writer for Breitbart News, covers the Middle East in particular, and also is a candidate for the Knesset, the parliament in the in Israel. Carolyn, so we've got an issue here with the Prime Minister who is getting charged with bribery, and it is one where a lot of the folks that I talk to, and I am a little bubbled on the issue of Israel, and I acknowledge that, all think of this as sort of the equivalent of the Israeli deep state. They think it's all trumped up. It's just designed to take him down as a politician. It's not about law and order, but I don't know the truth. What's going on?
Well, I think that, I wrote about this for Breitbart when the charges were first leaked to the public earlier in the year or last year, and I think that, that's the only assessment you can really make when you look at the nature of the charges against him, that this is really, that the legal theory behind the charges against Netanyahu is bizarre, to put it euphemistically. Basically, what they're saying is that that there's some criminal element to normal relations between politicians or public officials and journalists. So it really is a very distressing thing, just in general, for what it means about this sort of an assault on Israeli democracy, and also the fact that this is happening at the height of an election campaign for no particular reason. I mean, there's no legal reason for the charges to have been brought to the public 5 weeks before Israel's go to the ballot box, except to try to influence the outcome of the election on behalf of the Israeli left.
And it's a much tighter election than I think a lot of people would have anticipated. So there's clearly a political element to it. But what are the charges, and do we think there's any legitimacy to them?
Yeah, it's hard to see the legitimacy of charges that are brought without substantiation when the Prime Minister hasn't been afforded the opportunity to defend himself, or even to, and many of the key witnesses that should have been questioned by prosecutors were never called in to give their position. So it's hard to see this as reasonable just on its face because of the timing of it all and because of the rushed nature of the decision of the Attorney General to put these charges before the public. It's a transparent ploy by unelected officials to try to influence the outcome of the election. Regarding the actual charges, so one of them says, Professor Alan Dershowitz wrote an analysis of the cases against Netanyahu in one of the papers here that came out, I think, on Tuesday, and his position reflects what I wrote in earlier pieces in Breitbart, where he said that the first one is that Netanyahu is accused of misbehavior or whatever, behavior on becoming a public official or something like that, for accepting what the Attorney General claims are too many gifts from a friend of his in the form of cigars. And there's really
but we're talking about it has to be more than cigars and champagne. I mean, we're talking about the leader of a sovereign nation here, and we're going to have an international crisis over.
Cutlet.
There's a chicken cutlet. Like this is really, we're 5 weeks from an election, and we're going to take on the Prime Minister of Israel over cigars, champagne, chicken cutlet. That's it. That's what they got.
Well, they're breaded chicken cutlets.
Oh, it's got the breading on it. That's right. That's right. And that just makes it so delightful because chicken cutlet on its own.
Right. So that's one of the cases. He took too many of those. So like Alan Dershowitz wrote, it's impossible in an amorphous statute to even say what's too much because it's just a matter of an opinion, and therefore using the statute is in and of itself sort of persecutory as opposed to prosecutorial decision. The second one and the third one are similar. They're saying that Netanyahu traded favors with owners of media outlets that are hostile to him in an attempt to secure better coverage. And the strange thing about both of these cases is twofold. First of all, it's that he didn't give them any special regulatory or other privileges. In one case, he brought his government down in order to block giving the newspaper publisher what he was asking for. And in the other one, it was a regulatory decision regarding the merger of two telecommunications companies. And Netanyahu's approval was the final signature in a long line of approvals from regulators that it had to receive. So it was really more of a formal move, and also the Attorney General himself approved it. So they're saying that he shouldn't have made this regulatory decision, and he did it to get good coverage, but he got terrible coverage, and the regulatory decision wasn't his. So the whole thing is just kind of crazy.
Carolyn Glick, I really appreciate it. I wish we had more time to get into it, but this is clearly a political issue, and hopefully the folks of Israel judge Netanyahu not on these trumped-up charges that won't get resolved in time, and people judge how he's doing, how he's governing his nation, and I think he's doing a great job. I'm not an Israeli voter, but Carolyn is, and good luck to you, Carolyn, in your race as well. We'll keep you guys posted. We'll be right back with your calls on Breitbart News Daily. What is that? Seriously, if the weather is good, I'm probably going to golf in the morning. Are you hanging around? Oh, boy. It's so funny. I get to listen to Boyle. I'm not going to go through security for nothing. Oh, my God. Yeah, you do got to work. I could probably go the afternoon. When you done? Because it's a long day. It's a long day. Yeah, I will be enjoying Boyle from the comfort of my headset. The weather will not hold up, though, is my guess. That's all right. You'll
Good, I'm Chris.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to step away from the definition that I consider myself a warrior, and I really do believe that what I call in the book the Democrat media complex, which is the natural alliance of the Democratic Party, liberal interest groups, and the mainstream media, is something that needs to be taken down.
Carrying on the legacy of Andrew Breitbart, this is Breitbart News Daily with your host, Alex Marlow, on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
That's right, folks. We are live from a very sleepy broadcast row here at CPAC. National is not sleepy? Oh, well, apparently there has been coffee being doled out, and we've changed the neon sign, the neon coloration of our SiriusXM booth here at CPAC 2019 to hot pink, magenta, if you will. Or are we not? Are we not hot pink? I thought we were hot pink. We're purple now. That's pretty good, though. I was going for a feel of a junior prom limo, like the lighting scheme in the junior prom limo from my youth. That's the goal. We are broadcasting live on our Facebook page and on the front page of Breitbart.com. CPAC should be exciting. And today, Matt Boyle had a great panel yesterday on media bias that we have some write-ups at Breitbart.com, the front page. You can check that out. We have a live stream going of the main stage. I think there's a lot to be happy about with this year's CPAC slate. A lot of good China conversation. That is, I think Breitbart was years ahead of that. I think a lot of good discussion of the masters of the universe and their threat to freedom of speech as we know it. I think Mark Zuckerberg and the Google folks have been successfully branded as the villains that they are and the threat to freedom that they are, and I think it's a good thing that that is on the agenda, but sadly the very limited immigration agenda, which I'm not thrilled about. Hopefully we'll get Chris Kobach to slide in here, talk about that a little bit. I must say, did we solve the immigration issue? Is it done? Because based off of this weekend, it looks like it's not a major deal. Or perhaps there's something else going on, but I'm not thrilled about that. But for the most part, it's pretty good. We're having a good time here, and if you can make it through the very long security line, feel free to stop by, say hello, and happy to snap a photo with anyone, shake a hand, and you can give me a piece of your mind even. 866-95-PATRIOT. We had a few topics on the agenda and some great callers, particularly some teachers queuing up and others to talk about the discussion of, we got into the Red for Ed issue, where this is a national community organizing movement to use the school system in order to make folks even more socialist than the school system is churning out at the moment. That's the LA Times declared not a national movement, not about community organizing. Unfortunately for them, the Red for Ed leader wrote in the Marxist, literally the Marxist Jacobin magazine, that it is literally a national community organizing effort to socialize Americans. That's happening in our school system. You guys know this, but no one really reports on it, aside from a handful of folks in conservative media. We also went into a fair bit of detail of some of the fake race baiting controversies with Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and with Michael Cohen calling the president a racist, the Lynn Patton being called a prop, which is not racist, calling a successful black woman a prop, not racist by Rashida Tlaib, but it is racist to bring her to a hearing to be a witness on behalf of President Trump. So we are in a backwards world when it comes to race, and we played this clip. Let's play this again, Mr. Paul 9A. This is Andrew Breitbart, who passed away 7 years ago today. His legacy endures. It is indelible, not in the hippocampus, because things aren't indelible in the hippocampus. It is just indelible in general. 9A, Mr. Paul.
One of the most effective tactics that the left has is the ability to accuse its opponents of being a racist. It's an impossible negative to dispel. It immediately puts somebody on the defensive, and it sends a message to the audience. You shouldn't take seriously what's coming out of that person's mouth because they've been degraded as being a racist. In the era of my conservatism, which is the last 20 years of my life, I've tried to make the argument that that's an affirmation of precisely the opposite, that if in this country being accused of a racist is the worst thing that caused people to shut up, doesn't that mean that racism has been dispelled to a huge degree, that to be accused of it, the American people recoil and don't want to be in your proximity? If racism were the default in this culture and somebody accused you of being a racist, wouldn't you say, yeah, I am, just as is the majority, you're going to deal with it. It is used because those who wield it know how effective it is. That is the primary reason. It is the most effective tool that the Democrat media complex has.
He nailed this, even stating it is the most effective tool, and you're seeing it because as their arguments seem to get weaker, the smears seem to get more on the nose. This is all what they're falling back on, because they can't argue the merits intellectually of the Green New Deal. They can't argue the merits of fourth trimester abortion, otherwise known as baby murder, on an intellectual basis, on a scientific basis. They can't argue that stuff. But here's what they can argue. They can call people who disagree with them racist and hope it works. But will it work? I don't know, so long as there is free speech, so long as there is talk radio, and so long as there is conservative new media. So let's hear from you guys. 866-95 Patriot. Why don't we go to, how about Kyle in Missouri, line 5. Kyle, good morning. Welcome.
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
Not bad.
What I originally called to talk about, and I will, was I keep hearing this over and over and over about what about Charlottesville? What about him saying that Klansmen were good people when you, me, everybody else, Democrat, Republican, everybody knows, except for the useful idiots, everybody knows that he was talking about people that were arguing that stupid statue argument, which I could give two craps about, right?
Right.
Well, I'm a kind of a libertarian for the most part, so, well, if it's on state property, that's a state issue anyway, so why do I care what happens in Virginia? But then you had that teacher call, and I got to be honest, my wife's a teacher, and she has the exact same thing happening to her all the time. She goes on Facebook, and it's gotten to the point where if she sees a funny meme, she'll message it to me and have me post it for her.
Do you think, Kyle, anyone who's intellectually honest thinks that Donald Trump was suggesting that the actual racists, and I'm not saying there weren't some actual racists at the Charlottesville protest, that he was saying the actual racists were good people? Or do you think perhaps the president was referring to the peaceful folks who were there, who were trying to defend the tearing down of history and monuments? And again, I'm noting it was a mixed bag.
I'm quite sure
but it wasn't he saying that, well, some of these folks just don't want the monuments taken down. He didn't say everyone was great. He said there were good people on both sides. Just like the Antifa rioters, he was suggesting that some of the folks who thought the monument should come down were good people. He said they're good people on both sides. That does not mean there were no bad people on both sides. Why do we choose to ignore the obvious context here? I think you know the answer to that, Kyle.
I do know the answer to that. And even people I consider, at least think I still consider them friends, they get what I call now Juan Williams-itis, if that makes any sense.
No, expand on that.
A once reasonable person that is now so big into the I gotcha business that all reason has left their minds.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. And
pick on a guy, but
no. It's a lot of. Well, he offers himself up, which is I appreciate that about Juan. By the way, I did recently see Juan shambling around a local mall here. He looked like a happy guy. I didn't say hi. He was on it was a Saturday, but it's always funny to see guys. Those are our celebrities here in the D.C. area. When you see Juan Williams, that was like I don't know, seeing. Ryan Reynolds in Los Angeles. That would be the equivalent. He's the Ryan Reynolds of the D.C. area. All right, let's go to Pam, Tennessee. Pam's a teacher. Pam, what are your thoughts? Pam, ready to go? I'm really excited to talk to Pam. So I'm hoping Pam is on mute, and I'm going to filibuster on her behalf.
No, she's there.
She is there, according to our producers. I'm going to give Pam another few seconds to unmute. This is a failed endeavor. Well, Pam said she is a teacher who's trying to teach her students what racism actually is, not what the fake news says it is. Well, thank you, Pam. I appreciate it. And I definitely want more people who are teachers to call in, talk about what you're witnessing here with the radicalization of our schools beyond what we've already seen. Hans, Indiana, on line 6. Hans, what's on your mind today?
Hey, what's up, man? What's up, Bob? It's good to talk to you again.
Same.
This is what I want to talk about, a couple of things. First, I'll kind of piggyback a little bit on Andrew Breitbart. He's obviously a visionary. A lot of in-depth thought that he put into a lot of these things. And when he says that we're put on the defensive, I think that's like a really important part of that statement, because what happens, and I've been in this scenario too, you are on the defensive, and then when you try and present facts, you know what I mean, surrounding, certain elements of crime involving races and stuff like that, all of a sudden you're painted as somebody that maybe potential viewpoint of a white supremacist, supposedly, because, you've actually looked, you've delved into it, you kind of have a pretty good idea. You know the facts. And that gets to my greater point here is that I guess now we're not even able to present the facts. And this is from the top down. This is happening in D.C. and it's happening in smaller areas of America where, for some reason, they've taken that same approach of these Democrat politicians, and you can't even present the facts. And like you say, it always comes back to feelings, and it's just, how do we defend ourselves? And then you would look at most of the mainstream news coverage, obviously, is so heavily slanted that you can't rely on that. I go both ways on Fox News, but I am thankful that Fox News is around. I really am.
Sure.
Fox there is a lot of good.
Yeah, Fox has been infiltrated by the left, particularly in their news division, and I think there's some fear of ticking off some people on the opinion side. But they got a lot right. They get half the stuff right, so which is better than anyone else. So, look, guys, this is a show where I'm not black and white on a whole lot. I'm black and white on Israel. I mean, that one's a clear one for me. But for the most part, I can acknowledge that Fox does a lot of good. Fox has been doing great stuff. Tucker, in particular, on the Facebook and Google censorship, and they deserve a ton of credit for that. That's
a great example. Yeah, talking about things that wouldn't be otherwise covered in mainstream media. One other thing too, and I'm going to let you go here shortly, but the situation with North Korea. I think there are a few elements at play that really haven't been brought up enough.
Yeah.
One is that we're, 19 or 18 months away from an election here. And so guarantees by the current president, might not be binding if he were to not be reelected.
Yeah.
Okay, I expect him to be reelected because I think he's doing a great job. But what if Kim says, I don't know if you're going to be around 2 years from now? And then what happens if I totally do denuclearize and, one of your adversaries gets into office and all of a sudden my security, now your security assurances are rather meaningless, and I denuclearized. And, and then I also think that, there is, I was watching Fox News and they had an Asian geopolitical analyst on there. And he talked about China, and he thought that, part of the reason that Trump might have backed out of this negotiation was to show China, too, that he's not scared to walk away. Absolutely. And, pertaining mostly to this newest round of tariffs. And so I feel like, and that's purely speculation, okay? But, at the same time, a little bit of it makes sense potentially, and I don't like the Warmbier and stuff, but let's remember at the same time, too, that Warburner was taken into custody under Obama. You know what I mean? Trump inherited that mess. And, as far as I know, I don't exactly even know when all that treatment of Warmbier took place.
Sure.
And I apologize because I don't know all the facts.
Yeah, Hans, we'll leave it there, and I'm going to let you go, Hans, even though Hans says he was going to let me go there, which is adorable. Yeah, thanks, Hans. It was great stuff. And this is a listener, Lulu, emails. How come Trump is the only person adamant about denuclearizing North Korea, whereas France, Germany, Spain, the UK, and every other Western nation? It's such a good point, and Trump should be getting a lot of credit for this. Look, I don't like the Warmbier comment that we played, that he suggested that Kim had nothing to do with it, but he's being diplomatic right now. It's whether or not you want to virtue signal about who is casting the correct blame on Otto Warmbier is so secondary, tertiary, whatever is beneath that, relative to doing what it takes to denuclearize the North Korean peninsula, where the president is making big strides. By the way, guess how many summits Ronald Reagan had to have until he was able to get the Berlin Wall to fall and the end of the Cold War? Five. So we're number 2 here with Trump. So I think he's got a little time. And the China point that Hans makes is the same point. I wonder if that's Gordon Chang Hans was talking about, but I think that's the correct point. I think that this absolutely has to do with China. To what extent, I don't know, but I'm sure China is a factor here. All right, we'll continue rolling with calls. Let's go to Tina in Georgia. So she's a high school teacher. Tina, what's up? Line 1.
Well, I have a first period class where we stand up and we say the pledge and have our little moment of silence. 11th grade class, I'm the only person that stands and says the pledge.
Wow.
I've been teaching for 19 years. It is the most disheartening thing I have ever seen on a daily basis. And I think to myself, these kids are 16 and 17. In a couple of years, they can vote. And they honestly I don't think knows what's going on. Because speaking to the other point the teacher made, we can't, talk about our political views when we teach. I taught history before. When we teach history, it is, very skewed. George Washington was a racist. He owned slaves. And it just goes back to the narrative. We've come a long way. We've still got a long way to go in the U.S., but we have come a long way, but we're not given credit for that. And it just blows my mind.
Do you ever...
It hurts my feelings, hurts my heart as an American.
Tina, do you ever ask any of the students or their parents, for that matter, what their objection is to the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, my God, I wouldn't dare. I would not dare, because that's political suicide. I would lose my job.
Even if you politely said, just out of curiosity, I would like to see your viewpoint, try to understand your viewpoint, why don't you believe it's appropriate to stand for the flag, the symbol of the freest country on the planet Earth that's done the greatest good for the greatest number, the greatest peacekeeping force on the planet, the greatest engine of ingenuity and economic growth? Why wouldn't you stand for that? Why? What is your perspective? That would be a career suicide for you.
It is honestly just. I would lose my job, because I'm sure it would be twisted as I was badgering somebody, or I was not respectful of their beliefs or what they stood for, or anything like that. And I totally get it. We do need to start the narrative with these kids at a young age. But I know, because I have been teaching long enough, it would come back to bite me in the butt. Either I would get fired, or I would be blacklisted as far as getting a job in a different county or anything like that.
So Tina, I had the same question for you about Red for Ed. Is this a factor on your? Is this a factor for you? Is this something that you encounter in your school?
No, we don't. I have not had anybody talk to me about it. I am a member of a teachers union, but I have not heard any inkling of that in Georgia. Now, if we do go down that road, I will, definitely approach that in a different manner, and probably, end my time as a union member. But we have not heard anything about that as of yet.
Thanks, Tina. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jim in Virginia, line 4. Jim, good morning. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have quite a dispute with quite a lot that's been said today. The gentleman from Missouri, I have some news for you, sir. Your state was a Confederate state, and one day they may come after your statues of your heroes.
That's right.
You better care.
This is already happening. This is already happening. They're coming after union leaders now. So it is going to expand. This is the slippery slope that the left never wants to accept. It's not just going to be folks who are associated with the Confederacy. It's going to go beyond that. I'm saying, Jim, no one is going to meet the standard of the current woke leftists. Abraham Lincoln statues are going to have to come down. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, there's enough out there based on the left's absolutist standards on this stuff that we're going to have no monuments left. All we're going to have is the current modern day utopian leftist socialist.
Number 2, there was a lot of media hype behind Charlotte that caused a lot of problems.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been near as bad. And most of those Antifa people were imported from up north, the professional protesters. They had no permits to be there. The ones who I do not care for did have permits to be there. There were people like myself who didn't want to see the statues taken down because they commemorated a terrible battle where a lot of people died in forest fires during the battle, the wilderness campaign, and they had the outfits who fought there. That's what it commemorated, and it was put up with private funds, not state, not federal. And I'm tired of being insulted by people because I am willing to take my stand.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the call. Quick break. We'll be right back on Breitbart News Daily, live from CPAC.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So I think there's a lot of people coming to Abby's side on this one very quickly, very quickly. The most rapid I've ever seen. It's kind of an amazing coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you saw the recent polls, I'm sure.
Yeah, like 17-point swings in a month on pro-life issue. I guess you're part of that, sort of.
Yeah, now. Nobody warned me about that ahead of time. They were like, oh.
866-957-2874. This is Breitbart News Daily with Alex Marlow on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
Welcome back from CPAC 2019. Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart.com. Special greetings to those watching us on our live streams on our 10th in the world biggest Facebook page. Isn't that pretty cool for a news outlet? Number 10 on planet Earth. That's pretty cool. And also our front page at Breitbart.com. I'm joined now by Ashley Bratcher, actress in the movie Unplanned. She plays Abby Johnson, who we've had a number of times on the show. I've been trying to get you as well. It's fantastic to meet you. Thanks so much for joining us here at CPAC and getting up early and enduring the security line. It's on time even. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Maybe a little later next time.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not what's known as a morning person myself, so I joke that I have a middle of the night show because it starts at 6 a.m. So for me, I think of myself as a late night host more than a morning host.
I agree.
So let's talk about the movie and let's talk about your journey. Tell us a little bit about Unplanned, broad strokes, and I'll get into your involvement.
Okay, so Unplanned is the true story of Abby Johnson.
Yeah.
Abby was a clinic director for Planned Parenthood. She worked at Planned Parenthood for 8 years, facilitated around 22,000 abortions. She had just won Employee of the Year, and shortly after that, she was called back to assist on an ultrasound-guided abortion. And it was during that procedure that she saw for the very first time that there was a fully formed baby in the womb that was fighting for its life to survive. And she realized that everything Planned Parenthood had told her was a lie. It was not a clump of cells.
Yes.
She witnessed this baby be wrung like a dishcloth as it was vacuumed out in an abortion. And after that, she was completely devastated. And shortly thereafter, she left Planned Parenthood, and she's now one of the most outspoken pro-life voices of our time.
So they're making the movie Unplanned, and it's got a real Hollywood budget. It's a real Hollywood production company behind it. This is a serious theatrical release, and you get the offer to play Abby Johnson, and then a whirlwind begins for you.
Right. And I knew none of that. I mean, even the initial casting breakdown that went down was so confidential. It didn't say who was making it. It didn't have Abby's last name. I mean, there was very, very little information.
So what did you know?
That's it. I mean, I knew that Abby was a real person, and because I had auditioned, I looked her up, so I was familiar with her story. But weeks had gone by, and I hadn't heard anything. So, in Hollywood terms, that's basically, oh, you didn't get the part.
Yes.
Well, weeks go by, and then they call me at the last minute, and they said, hey, the role is yours. Can you get on a plane in 4 hours for 8 weeks in Oklahoma?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and so I convinced them to give me 5 hours at least to pack for all that time.
That was good. That's hard bargaining. The president would be very proud. It's just good, solid negotiation there. So you think you're going to a movie, the movie's about someone who's a Planned Parenthood representative. That's all you know. What are your politics like at the time?
Well, before I knew Abby's testimony, I was middle of the road. I considered myself pro-life, but I didn't think that I had the right to tell anyone else what to be or what to do. And after I heard her story, I really finally kind of understood, and it sank in, and I started doing more research about when does life begin? What is the science behind it? And I developed a firmer stance that, no, there's a life that we're not protecting, that we're allowing to be innocently killed in the United States.
So, and this is remarkable because this is the power of Hollywood. And so I'm from Hollywood. I'm from Los Angeles. And Andrew Breitbart, our founder, who passed away 7 years ago today, he was someone who was from Hollywood, was a knee-jerk liberal. He was always pro-life because he was adopted. So that was he had no choice. He always said, I can't even debate it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this topic. And the power of storytelling we've such great arguments. We're not as good at the storytelling as the left is. And so you're a part of this now. So you're a part of, like it or not, a major effort to try our hand at this sort of storytelling that the left has perfected.
Yeah, I completely agree. I heard a quote a couple of weeks ago that says, storytellers are the ones that can change culture, not lawmakers.
That's right.
And I think that's so incredibly true, especially with putting out a good film that gets attention and starts a conversation that can potentially shift our culture like it already is right now.
And so Unplanned, again, is the movie, which we've talked about, we'll continue to talk about. It's coming up here. When is the release?
March 29th.
March 29th. So we'll continue to plug away at it. This is one where you guys have to be supportive of. You have to walk the walk on this one. Ashley Bratcher is with me. She's the star. She plays Abby Johnson, who is well familiar to those of us in the Breitbart News audience. So talk to us a little bit about, it must have been so intense filming something like this, such an intense subject matter. I mean, this the heaviest subject matter on the planet.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, from day one until the very last day of shooting, I'm pretty sure I cried every single day.
Oh, I mean,
it was just required of me because I was filming these really intense emotional scenes, and Abby nearly died from her RU-486 abortion, where she did the chemically induced abortion. And so that was a grueling process, not only because it took 8 hours to shoot one day, and then we went into overtime. So I've been crying for 8 hours all day, one day, and then they're like, okay, we got to stop. We're going to come back and pick it up in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get through this? Because it was like that every single day. And because I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, I leaned into my faith. And every morning I just woke up and I prayed. And before every scene, I just prayed and I thought, God, give me strength to get through this because I can't do it without you.
So give me your background, because this is so crucial that you have to. I have some exposure to this in Hollywood, but the drawing on the level of emotion you have to summon to do take after take of these scenes is. You don't know it until you witnessed it, but you relied on your faith to get through it.
Yeah, I did. I primarily relied on my faith and the guidance of the Holy Spirit to just really feed me what I needed to be present in the moment. But that also stems from my training in my craft, and I'm a Meisner-trained actor. So the mantra is to live truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
Yes.
So I'm taught to analyze and research everything. So if I'm going through an RU46 abortion, that I need to know like at least 3 things that I can include in my performance that would happen during that time. Like, is it abdominal pain? Is it vomiting? Is it dizziness? Like, what are the 3 things that I can include as an impediment in my performance and know that that's truthful without clouding my head and be like, oh, I have to do this. I just need to know the situation well enough that I can react in the moment and believe that it's really happening to me.
So the Meisner method, there's like 2 or 3 major schools of thought for acting. So how does that, well, what comprises that particular approach?
I would just say more than anything, most people who practice Meisner say that it's all about being present in the moment.
Right.
And so in my training, that's what it shifted more than anything, because it puts your focus on the other person and what you want to get from them or what they're giving you. So your entire performance is based on the other person and not yourself. And I mean, it changed my life in real life too, because I'm all of a sudden paying more attention in my conversations. I'm not thinking constantly about what I'm going to say. I'm listening to other people more, and that's really what good acting is it's listening and reacting as opposed to saying what you want to say.
So one of the questions I had jotted down was I was going to ask you how you prepare for a role like this, but apparently you don't really prepare for it. You just go in head first.
Well, with this I did have to go in head first. I will say that I was working 24/7 because even when I wasn't on set, I was watching Lila Rose videos. I mean, I was watching all of Abby's videos online. I was researching Dr. Levatino's videos, who's a former abortionist. And so I would literally, I remember I'd be taking a shower and my laptop would be like right outside the shower. I'd be listening to whatever that was, and then I'd have Abby's audiobook playing in one ear.
Wow.
It was really just jumping straight in because there was no time. I had to just lean on my instincts and trust God.
That's incredible. And so have you done any other media? How are you being received? Because this is such a, this is an issue that is so much of Hollywood are single issue voters on this issue, and they're the other side. They're the abortion absolutists.
Yeah, you know, Hollywood has such a strong opinion, apparently, but I haven't had any mainstream media reach out to me. We put it out there. We said, hey, CNN, like, give us a call. Fox has been really great to us. I've been on Fox several times.
That's really good to hear.
They've given us a great platform to talk about it, and they just keep having us on. But we've reached out to mainstream media, and I'm not opposed to doing it. Like, you don't have to agree with me to talk with me. We can have a civil conversation. Like, it's okay to disagree. But at the same time, like, let's be respectful of each other.
Again, Ashley Bratcher is with me. She plays Abby Johnson in the upcoming movie Unplanned. You'll be hearing a lot about that at Breitbart in the days and weeks to come as we continue to look. This is a big one. This is Abby's real life story, from being a part of thousands and thousands of abortions, and now this movie comes out where she is one of the leading advocates. March 29th release. This is one of the leading advocates for the pro-life movement. And Ashley, this is just, you couldn't have picked a more amazing moment for this movie to come out, because the country is shifting so radically. And why is the country shifting? Because I think we have clarity on where the Democratic left stands on this issue, which is absolutism on abortion, no matter what, to the day of delivery, if not beyond. At the same time, you have science evolving into such a way, which I was lucky enough to, my wife had a baby last year, and the first ultrasound is a heartbeat, is pounding away. The child is a child. And some of this science, some of this clarity that we're seeing from the left and where they really stand, it's changing minds to the pro-life side.
I agree. I mean, the March for Life this past year was based on pro-life is pro-science, unique from day one.
That's right.
And it's becoming harder and harder for people to support their pro-choice stance and deny science. I mean, you can't, it's really hard to deny scientific evidence.
Does that play into the movie?
It does. I mean, in the sense that Abby had that revelation, but that Planned Parenthood is very deceptive about it.
Sure. And Planned Parenthood, Abby talks about a little bit about how they try to sell Christians. That in particular, is that you and I are both Christians, and there's a lot of Christians in the audience, that they try to make a sales pitch. They give you the talking points so that you can convince Christians that abortion's okay.
Abby actually said she went to a church during her time working there where she was praised for being in Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
And it was just so deceitful. But another shocking statistic is that about 60% of women who have abortions identify as Christian.
Wow.
So it really is an issue within the church, too, that we're not talking about, which is really worrisome.
It is worrisome, and I go to church weekly, and it's Catholic church, so the abortion does come up, probably more than any other political issue, but it's not a constant. It's not a constant thing you're hearing about week in and week out, and I think that we let this narrative slip away on the right a little bit, but we're clearly making progress, and I think this movie is going to do a big service. Again, Unplanned comes out March 29th. Tell us something surprising about the movie or the process or anything in general you like, or even about yourself, just anything on your mind.
Well, I think people who might not be familiar with my story, the most shocking thing that I learned happened 4 days after I had arrived on set. As I mentioned before, they offered me the role. I had 4 hours, 5 hours to get out to Oklahoma. I hit the ground running. I also have a child. I have an 8-year-old little boy. So my son and my husband and my sister knew because I needed her help. And they were the only ones who knew that I had left for the project. And so when I got to Oklahoma, it was straight into pre-production. I had 52 wardrobe changes. They were coloring my hair. It was insane. So the 4th day that I was there, my mom finally called me. I'm like, I haven't told my mom where I am. And so I wanted to explain to her what I was doing, but I was very cautious because my mom had told me she'd had an abortion when she was in high school. And so I wanted to make sure that she didn't feel like I was judging her or condemning her with this movie, that this wasn't some movie that was just judging all women who'd had abortions or abortionists. And I knew that she'd be emotional when I started talking about it, but as I went on to describe everything, she just completely lost it. I mean, she's on the phone, and I can just feel her spirit crushed. And she said, Ashley, I need to tell you something that you never knew before. What you don't know is that when I was 19, I was in the clinic for the 2nd time, and I had been called back by the team, and I went in. I was on the table in the clinic, and a very pregnant nurse came in and examined me, and I got really sick, and I knew that I couldn't go through with it, and I got up, and I chose to have you.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and I never knew that. I mean, I never, ever knew that.
Whoa.
Jumping into this, I had already accepted this role to play Abby Johnson, who is such a pro-life advocate. I mean, she's really well known in the pro-life world, and she's fighting
But
for
you
life.
almost weren't here to be able to play it.
I was intended to be aborted, yeah, and it's all because my mom just had this feeling. She got sick, and she didn't think she could do it. Yeah, it was crazy. So I'm on the phone with my mom, and she tells me that, and I'm in the middle of having my hair colored. I'm in a salon. I mean, I literally have, I don't know if you've ever seen women in salons, but I had aluminum foils together.
I've been witness probably more often than I'd like.
It is, it's a funny...
It's a funny look for a couple hours.
So then I'm sitting there in a salon as I'm talking to her, looking like a crazy person, hysterically crying, and everyone's like,
I got to tell you, just to full disclosure, I'm having a hard time keeping it together right now, and we just met, so I can't imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah, I needed some time to process it. I took a couple of days before I called her back. And my parents are divorced, so I actually called my dad in the meantime. Yeah. And just said, hey, Dad, why did nobody tell me this? I'm grown. I have my own child.
Yes.
Nobody told me this. So, he had found out from my sister when I left what I was doing, and he had been emotionally wrecked as soon as he found out what I was doing, because he'd never told anybody in his entire life that he was with her the day that she went to go get an abortion for me. And he just said, there was never a right time. Like, when do you tell your daughter that you intended to abort her? And then he said that they thought it was their only option. He had just graduated high school. People were like, you're too young to have a baby. You can't do this. And they didn't have enough money for the abortion. So he went and pawned a family heirloom, and it happened to be a shotgun.
Oh, my goodness.
So a pawned shotgun was what was intended to pay the death penalty for me. Yeah.
That was going to fund your death. And he said, you're here making this movie.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was really a lot of confirmation for my dad, too, because he was kind of an in-between believer, but it sealed the deal for him to say, this is just evidence to me that God is real and he has a plan from the moment of conception, and that you are evidence of that.
If that doesn't move people, I don't know. That's the best I got. It's the best we got here, folks. Ashley Bratcher, it's a treat to meet you. How did that affect your performance at all? I mean, it couldn't. I imagine that you could probably summon another gear after that.
Well, I didn't have a lot of time to process it, and I still don't think to this day, because I've been just going, that I really fully comprehend what all that means. I mean, just thinking about the life that you have. You said you have a wife and a child, and imagining that you could have never had that. I would have never had the chance to have this impact on society, to experience love and grace, and I mean even hardship, to overcome that.
Of course,
it's part of life.
It is.
So I'm really grateful. I mean, a lot of people condemned my mom when she told me, and I thought, this is crazy. No, I think she's courageous for telling me, and she's courageous for having me.
She was, exactly.
She endured a lot of hardship to have me.
And I'm not speaking on behalf of all Christians, but from my experience, and I think you're probably similar, we're much more focused on going forward than on dwelling on the past and judging the past. So we would like, if people see this movie and they maybe a few more lives like yours get saved, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, I completely
Even
agree.
if you've had an abortion, maybe you won't have another one.
Yeah. We've encountered a lot of women and men who have approached us after these pre-screenings we've had through the U.S. and said that this has just brought me so much healing. I mean, women and men just coming to me, crying, just streaming tears, and hug me and say, you would not believe how much this is changing my life and this is helping me. And we realize that when people watch this movie, there are going to be a lot of people sitting in the audience that are going to have this open wound at the end of the movie. That are just like, where do I go from here? One cool thing about the film is that we're putting in a card at the end that is going to have a number that you can text immediately, and it will connect you with a counselor in your area. So if you need post-abortive counseling, there'll be that option immediately, and we have resources on the site. The site is going to become just nothing but abortion and post-abortive resources. So we're really making sure that we're covering people that are affected by this issue and the movie once I've seen it.
Well, Ashley, thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing the interview. Thanks for doing the movie. We're really looking forward to it, and hopefully you'll come back closer to release date.
I'd love that. Thanks for having me.
Great to meet you, and keep up the good work. We'll be right back on Breitbart News Daily. That was fantastic.
Great, thank you
so much. It's actually better. I'm not joking. Starbucks is I don't like it. I like Dunkin' better. Yeah, I don't like Starbucks. Do you like Starbucks coffee?
I used to like Dunkin' better, but their beans get bitter, so I switched over to Starbucks.
Yeah, it is more bitter, but I throw the cream in, and it's fine. Evens it out. What are you looking at? Oh. Yeah, that would one. I would not. That would not make me want to call in. I would just listen on that one. See you around.
I like your t-shirt.
It's like Superman for a new generation. Is that joke still funny? It's not really funny anymore, like the opening the shirt with Superman. It's kind of old. Kind of hackneyed.
Too soon.
Hackneyed. What is never mind.
In the words of Andrew Breitbart, walk toward the fire. Don't worry about what they call you. This is Breitbart News Daily on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
Boy, that was special with Ashley Bratcher, who I'm told by Medium Boss Liz there's going to be a special with her and Abby Johnson on Sirius XM in a couple weeks. So we'll bring you details of that when that happens. The audience event. It's pretty cool. I guess I'm not hosting. I won't take the slight personally. Liz is chuckling. She's in the room with me, or in the very echoey media row here, broadcast row on CPAC 2019. We're broadcasting live today. Security is jacked up in a major way. And why? Because the vice president said to speak in a little bit. We have a live stream going at Breitbart.com on the front page, so you can see the main stage throughout the day. I think the festivities get going around 10-ish or so, but you'll see the front page, and I know any major speeches, Webb and Wilkow cut in for that. In the meantime, let's go to the phones. 866-95-PATRIOT. Let's go to Michael, Pennsylvania, line 1. Michael, what's cooking?
Good morning, Alex.
Hi.
Listening to this actress's story and all the perfect things God put in place, she was sent here. Her life was saved to be a prophet for us all, to tell us to stop killing our children. I can't tell you how moved I am by the story and all the perfect pieces that put in place. God's works are amazing, and we need to stop killing our children.
Michael, if you'd be so kind, turn off your turn signal. I think it would enhance the power of your commentary. These are very impassioned, beautiful words that are interrupted by the overly dramatic turn signal. But Michael, I'm with you. How could you not hear that?
I'm sorry.
That of all the actresses on the planet, that she's the one who's going to be portraying this role, and then she finds out she's not even supposed to be here. She is here by some sort of a miracle. And then she's here to play this role, and I can only imagine enhances the performance. I haven't seen it yet, but I will see it, and it's that was mind blowing. I was hoping she would get to that story. I was vaguely familiar with it. I had no clue exactly how dramatic it was going to be. So great to hear her tell it on the show. And if you guys just tuned in, you really missed out. You really missed out, Michael. Thank you for your passion. Appreciate it. 866-95.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Patriot. Let's go to Nick, New Orleans, line 6. Nick, what's going on?
Wow, I feel really bad going from that back to Charlottesville, but that was quite impressive.
But Nick, this is the point: is that we get distracted by non-issues. Like the president said, there are good people on both sides, and this is a media obsession for years. And then we're talking about the most important issues on the planet. When does life begin? What is the meaning of life? What should be our policy regarding the most innocent among us? Where is the public with regards to fourth trimester abortions? That's stuff that matters to folks. That's stuff that matters to you in your personal life. What the president said, that there are good people on both sides of Charlottesville, that doesn't matter, Nick. And that's what our media, the CNNs of the world, want us to talk about obsessively. Chris Cuomo, last week on CNN, continues to take the president out of context on this issue and play lying, cheating videos of it. That is what CNN thinks is a priority, not the stuff I talked about with Ashley.
Well, I'd like to relate that to Charlottesville in a way, though, because I think the way we fight on abortion and guns is the way we should fight on everything. And when we get accused of false racism, and by the way, if you look up the Unite the Right rally on Wikipedia, Trump is mentioned 200 times. So this is not anything to do with racism. They don't hate racism. As a matter of fact, they love racism. They just use it as an attack on us. False attacks on us, and so we have, we always point out the contradictions, the hypocrisy in them. But I think we have to start now deciding on a way to fight back and kind of like what to do in this situation, because what we're doing is not working. And so I think I always take the tack is when I get accused of racism, the first thing I do is I accuse them of racism louder and more emotionally. And I always have a reason. And they go, why do you call me a racist? Well, oh, you want evidence now? Well, you first. You give me evidence. But you're a racist because you call me a racist with no evidence whatsoever. That means you don't take racism seriously. That means you give cover to real racists. So that makes you a racist. And whenever they attack you, always change it back to them. Never, ever defend, because that's what they want you to do. Don't ever bring up the details, because they don't mention any details. It's always just smears. So just fight back and yell back at them. I think this is more important for like the talking heads on TV, but I think everybody should do this.
This is such a good point, and it's what the comedian Adam Carolla says, which is there's never been a better time to be a racist, because we're all ignoring no one cares about the actual racists. They're all they must be laughing their heads off every day, thinking that, look at this, the president, who is clearly not a racist, is getting accused of racism, and we're debating whether or not he's a racist, and no one is actually figuring out if there is any racism going on, because there are all these hate crime hoaxes. Or the way I put it, the president is clearly the worst Nazi ever, because if he is a Nazi, having an Orthodox Jewish daughter and son-in-law who work for him in the White House and having a 90% approval rating in Israel, probably not a success. He's not a great success if he really is a Nazi.
Absolutely.
Nick, appreciate it. By the way, this is fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A listener has emailed saying that based off of the Ashley Bratcher interview, she's now going to run for Congress. So she's motivated now to run for Congress. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. That's kind of fun. So we'll have to reach out to this listener. So that's good. People want to get involved. Fun show. Fun times. Let's go. Steve, Maryland, line 4. Good morning. What's up? You're in North Korea.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Hey, listen, I was just I'm kind of perplexed as to why our nation is the only one who's negotiating denuclearization with the North Koreans. Why can't we get a coalition of the willing together? Or is that just too confrontational? I don't know the answer to that, but we can seem to get them together to overthrow, violent leaders and tyrants in the world, but we can't get them together to confront the North Koreans. Everybody, seems to have a stake in this. Why don't we have that type of a coalition? Just a question.
Yeah, Steve, I got to be honest with you, and maybe some listeners can fill in the gaps. I have no clue. Why is this only the United States? I guess we have a massive presence still in South Korea, trying to keep the trying to keep the Korean Peninsula stable, which is, I know a lot of libertarians don't like that we still have plenty of troops stationed, because the Korean War technically ongoing, at least from the United States perspective, from a legal standpoint, which is an issue, I guess. But beyond that, I don't know. Why wouldn't this be a worldwide issue when you've got a power that is nuclear and is willing to use that power to as leverage to get advancements for themselves? I don't know. Why is Donald Trump the only leader on the planet interested? I don't have an answer. If you've got an answer, please call me. I would like to hear it.
That's what I take from this, too.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is the only one that's interested in denuclearization. Nobody else seems.
But Steve, we don't have any more time to talk about this, because we have to talk about whether or not the president asked his fixer to pay off a stripper 15 years ago. We got to focus on that. We got to get back to the real issues that matter.
I understand.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Rick in Alberta. Rick, we got a minute or so left. What's going on, Rick? Good morning.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for being such a light in the darkness.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're familiar with the Marxist agenda of the founder of the public education system, John Dewey. I'm really concerned how many untold billions of dollars we spend to send our children to these institutions that indoctrinate our children against conservative values and our faith. Are there any initiatives to defund these institutions?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I don't think anyone's calling for defunding. I think it's whether or not people are going to opt out or take their education into the home. And whether it's a homeschooling seems to be the only option for a lot of folks. But there has to be something more than that. We'll unpack that some more throughout the days and weeks ahead. You got to run to a break. Thanks for the call, Rick. Yeah, but it's a big concern. We were talking earlier about the socialist Red for Ed movement, community organizing in order to turn our children and our teachers into social justice socialist activist, is alive and well, is growing on our campuses. The left is not done fighting, folks. We have to fight back. We'll be right back. This is Breitbart News Daily.
I want you to understand that this is a fight, that this is a war, and it's not just a war against the cultural left. It's those on our side who falsely claim that they're fighting on your behalf, but are simply saying to you what you want to hear and aren't willing to fight for what you believe in.
Carrying on the legacy of Andrew Breitbart, this is Breitbart News Daily with your host, Alex Marlow, on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
Welcome back. Welcome to the show. This is Breitbart News Daily live from National Harbor, Maryland, just across the river from our nation's capital. CPAC 2019. This is my last hour, but the coverage continues for Breitbart News and for SiriusXM. Later in the day, David Webb will slide into the captain's chair in just an hour. Will Cow to follow, and then tomorrow we've got our Breitbart News Saturday show from here as well. We're streaming live today on our Facebook page and on the front page at Breitbart.com, which is pretty cool. You can, if those of you have any curiosity to what suit I'm wearing, it is my favorite suit. But more importantly, what T-shirt I'm wearing. Boom. Never Socialist USA swag from the Breitbart.com store, store.breitbart.com, our best-selling product line ever. It is reminding folks we're heading in towards a referendum. I think not even on President Trump, but on socialism. Beer koozie, T-shirt, baseball cap. We've got the ladies' shirts going. We've got the hoodies going. Tons of products, never socialist products at the Breitbart.com store. High quality, made in America. Great way to support Breitbart. And the point is, people do not understand socialism. They do not understand the totalitarianism. They do not understand the having an economy based off of the taking of wealth versus the making of wealth. And why this is so important. I mean, you guys understand this. You guys understand the threat socialism poses and how it really has not been done successfully anywhere yet. That is the utopian vision of virtually all of the Democratic presidential contenders and the stars of the Democratic movement that inspired the line. And we thank you guys for picking some high-quality stuff up at the Breitbart.com store. If you've missed the show so far, you've missed a lot of great callers. You missed an incredible interview with Ashley Bratcher, who's playing Abby Johnson in the upcoming Unplanned movie, which will continue to plug a big opportunity here for the right to continue to grow culturally. So it's always an uphill battle, given that Hollywood is what it is. But we have to fight back. We cannot not opt out of the playing fields available to us. So, without further delay, allow us to get back to the folks of the United States of America and Canada. Jay, Ontario, line 1. What's going on, Jay?
Good morning, Alex. How are you doing?
Very good.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm pissed off. The Project Veritas leaks, they weren't shocking. What was shocking was the evidence that they got.
Sure.
Now, I don't really have too much more to say other than, I've listened to Mark Levin talk about how he would sue the living hell out of anybody that ever interfered with the commerce of his business.
Yes.
And I hear you guys mentioned, I hear the Daily Caller mentioned, I hear Mike Cernovich, I hear Steven Crowder.
Yeah.
I mean, all I can say is I know sometimes you talk about resources, which, by the way, you've got to set up some kind of like an ad-free option for us, people that want to support you but maybe don't want to be or can't be walking around wearing swag. But I don't care how it's done. If you guys need to crowdfund support, but something needs to be done. You guys need to get together. I don't know what the relationships are like between these various, people or news organizations, but I think even if there are differences, you guys need to bury them, come together, and file a lawsuit because this is insane. I'm a web developer. I worked in web development before that television. I noticed the big change after the election, even the engagement. I mean, Alum, I don't think has really touched on this, and I don't even know for sure it's a thing. But another thing that's obvious across all platforms is the extra engagement. All the Jim Comeys and the Hillary Clintons and they've got since after the election when we were decimating them before the election. So anyway, that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, Jay, and by the way, thank you. And I don't have a problem with anyone you mentioned. I get along very well with Cernovich. He's been on the show. Crowder wrote for Breitbart for many years, so I haven't spoken to him in a while. Daily Caller is in general been pretty good about amplifying, even though they attack Breitbart periodically. It's mostly kind of good nature, to be honest. I don't sense a lot of hatred or mean-spiritedness, which is all I ask, really. So it's you could be right. I have zero legal expertise, and I'm very grateful that I have zero legal expertise because I can rely on others to handle that part of our business at Breitbart News. So I don't know if we have a good case or not, but this is some pretty incredible revelations that came out in the James O'Keefe, the latest expose that we talked to him about yesterday on the show. So you can get that on demand, commercial free, on the SiriusXM app. We also, I think, clipped it at the front page of Breitbart.com. James's latest undercover video essentially exposed what the Twitter equivalent of shadow banning is, where Facebook is downgrading certain content. We knew they were doing this because we noticed at the beginning of last year our engagement, our numbers on Facebook plummeted. The president's Facebook page, his personal page, plummeted 45% in a single month. In the meantime, CNN's Facebook engagements went up big league. So we knew this was happening, but James finally got folks on the record admitting it, talking about it, and good for James. He does great work. So this is a big one. This is a big one. And we'll continue to stay on it and try to look at whatever options we have. But in terms of legal ones, I don't know. I'm just simply not qualified. There's Hans von Spakovsky. Maybe we should ask him. Hey, Hans, how's it going? I don't know if Hans recognizes me by face, but he would know the answer to that. He's a great lawyer for Heritage and other places. All right, let's go to, how about Catherine, Ohio, line 5. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning. I am a second grade teacher in a impoverished school in a big city, and yesterday we had a Black History Month celebration. And we always have a speaker, and this year it was the head of the NAACP in our city. Well, during part of her speech, she mentioned that she wants to bring the NAACP into our schools.
Okay, so the NAACP does some good work. I understand that. I mean, there's the elements of it that are too race focused, but I understand the origins of it. I think were not intended to be anything short of trying to advance people who were at least up until recently an oppressed group of people. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm interested more in the content. What was the content there, Catherine?
Well, she was talking about how we are all the same, and during her speech, she made sure that she talked about how the police department disproportionately, goes against Black people and people of color. She made
and what was the evidence? So now we're making some progress here, because this is this is what I'm concerned about, which is the obsession over biases with teachers and biases within the school system in particular. So I'm sorry, in the police force. If we're talking about a focus on police being biased against Black people and attacking them, that I don't know if the evidence is there. This is a meme, a narrative that the left is pushing to try to make villainize cops, which is, did they back it up with facts?
No, she did not.
So that's the issue. It's not the NAACPs in the schools. I don't mind that. They have a right to speak. The issue is if they're going to spread things that are false in order to further divide us by race. That's kind of the point you're getting at, right, Catherine?
Right.
Okay. All right. That's it. That's all we got to know. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it. We're going to change focus. Big league here. Chris Kobach is with me. It's great to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
I'm glad you made it through the security line. Intimidating.
Yes, indeed. But I guess we have special guests coming to CPAC this afternoon.
So you're a busy man. What are you up to right now?
Right now, I am helping to with We Build the Wall. It's this organization that grew out of a GoFundMe campaign to build the wall on private land with private funds.
Yeah.
And also thinking about the 2020 Senate seat that's open in Kansas. Haven't made a decision yet on that.
Sure.
And still writing columns for Breitbart.
Yes, and one of the more knowledgeable folks on the planet on the issue of immigration. And I'll start with something a little negative, and it's a happy show for the most part. We're having a great time here at CPAC, to be honest. I'm honestly having a really good time. But CPAC is kind of treating it as though the immigration issue is solved. There's one panel, as far as I know, on the issue of immigration, and it's moderated by Rich Lowry from the National Review, who is part of the reason why the Republican establishment airballed this issue for a decade, more than that. He is directly accountable. It is surreal to me. And again, credit to CPAC on big tech, credit to CPAC on China. They're doing some great stuff. They got the president, they got the vice president. It's a great environment, all that stuff. But airball on immigration.
Yeah, I agree. And, I wouldn't even call it a panel. As I understand, it's just Rich Lowry asking Ted Cruz a few questions. It's not like these other topics where CPAC, on China, 4 different panels, all kinds of experts brought in to give attendees information they may not have. This is just kind of a topic for them to talk about with Senator Cruz. So, in the past, CPAC had, and I've been on immigration panels in the past, they devoted a lot of attention to this issue. Why in the world CPAC is spending so much time talking about China, which is, of course, an important issue every year, but it is not the number one issue right now, defining the conflict between the president and the judicial legislative branch.
And almost to the number, people are agreeing on this. And here's the thing, Secretary, the thing that bothers me the most is this is the lowest hanging fruit for Trump Nation. And I've made this point, and I know regular listeners are going to be annoyed by this. I've made this point 20 times on the show, but we bought a house last year. It needs a fair bit of work. And the folks who've been coming in, I live in the area, the D.C. area, and a lot of blue-collar guys, a lot of them of color, a lot of them don't like the president, a lot of them very sympathetic on his immigration policies because they know they're not getting a raise this year and they might be losing a job if we're importing a bunch of cheap labor to undercut their job. This is Trump's America, and we're not talking about it. We're moving on. Is this a solved issue? The border's gaping.
It is huge. I was just down there last week. There are huge sections of the border that have either nothing whatsoever to impede people coming in, or all they have is what's called a Normandy barrier. That's just a horizontal steel beam supported by some posts to stop a car, but you can hop right over it or walk or get on your knees and go right under it. It's ridiculous. Let's put this in perspective. We have 1,933 miles of border. Of that, fewer than 100 miles can have border barriers that can stop a pedestrian. 100 miles out of 1,900 miles. The other 1,800 are wide open to smugglers and people just walking right in. President Trump got 55 miles of funding from Congress. If he's able to reprogram all the money that he'd like to, another $8 billion through the statutes and national emergency, he'll get another 250 miles. So guess what? He gets 300 miles. We have 1,800 miles that needs to be secured. We are so far behind on this problem. And you have the problem of people claiming asylum coming in falsely. There's so many problems in our immigration system. President Trump is the one we elected to solve them. And here we are at CPAC talking about other stuff.
So we got former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach with me, who I think, without a doubt, should be the next Department of Homeland Security Secretary. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if my endorsement makes enough of a difference. But you have it if you need it, Secretary. Let's talk about the spending bill, which I thought was a disaster, and it's frustrating to listeners. But look, I'm going for integrity. I'm not going for happy talk. I love this president. I think he genuinely wants to secure the border. I can't imagine not supporting him in 2020. We are way behind on the biggest issue. We've already noted that. But what are the specifics? What is it that we're spending on? What are we missing?
So this bill had all kinds of poison pills in it. The president was boxed into a corner. I think the members of Congress were pushing him to sign it of his own party. Certainly people in the White House were pushing him to sign it and ignore the poison pills. But the biggest one is this de facto amnesty for people who are potential sponsors of unaccompanied minors. So you're an unaccompanied minor. You came in allegedly at age 15. Of course, you came in probably with several of your cousins, and you were sent in by your family. But anyway, you came in at age 15, and now anybody who's a potential sponsor in the United States, not just your uncle that you know is here, but also all your cousins who are over the age of 18, any distant relatives of a potential sponsor, they can claim, I get this de facto amnesty, which means ICE cannot remove any potential sponsors or the household members of potential sponsors. So let's say you have 4 potential sponsors who are distant relatives of yours, and each of them lives in a household with 5 people. Well, that's 20 people that just got a de facto amnesty and cannot be removed under the terms of this bill, which is now law. So that was the biggest problem with it. In addition, it says we can't impose any fees on people coming into the United States from either Canada or Mexico. The reason they stuck that in there was because that was one of the ways Trump could force Mexico to pay for the wall. Slap a surcharge on people coming in through the Mexican ports of entry. They prohibited that as well. They also said, okay, here's 55 miles worth of funding for the Rio Grande sector of the border, Rio Grande Valley sector, which is the farthest eastern one up against the Gulf. But they said, here are half a dozen places you can't build. So here are 6 giant holes that have to be in that sector in the fence. It's infuriating.
And it sounds like where the wall is going to be built, if it does get built, first of all, I found it very depressing earlier this week, and I didn't bring it up for the sake of not trying to bum out the audience, but all of the border prototypes that have all been demolished. So they're just an admission that we're not actually building the big, beautiful wall with the big, beautiful door that we were promised. That's not coming. We're getting the bollard fencing, which I'm probably fine with relative to other folks. It seems like the law enforcement crowd digs it. I'm for any sort of a barrier, whatever is easiest to get up. That's all fine with me. I know some of the audience is a little more hardcore than me on that one. But are we even building in the right spots? If things get up, are we building in the highest traffic areas?
The Rio Grande Valley sector is actually the highest traffic sector right now. We are building in some important high traffic spots in the Rio Grande Valley sector.
Good to hear.
And I would add this too: the fact that let's say the president gets 300 miles and the courts go on his side, as they should, with all of these legal challenges. That's good. It doesn't solve the problem, because think of the border as a giant leaky hose.
Sure.
We've got 100 leaks. Well, maybe with the spending, we'll patch 30 of them. Okay. That means that we have fewer places now where the drug smugglers and alien smugglers can go through. And I'll say a positive note about the bollard fencing. So I was just down in Arizona, as I mentioned. We were up on the Montezuma Pass at one point, which is a sort of a mountain pass right on the border. And on the east side of the pass, it was about 10, 15 miles of bollard fencing.
Yeah.
On the west side, wide open. And we talked to Border Patrol officers too. The east side of the pass is pretty secure. The Border Patrol doesn't need to spend much in the way of resources and time and vehicles on the east side because they've got that giant 18-foot bollard fence. The smuggling goes on the west side because there is no significant fencing there.
Wow.
And so what it does, the bollard fencing does seem to work. It does force the smugglers to use the open corridors, and it's pretty imposing. It's 18 feet tall. You have the steel bollards, but then at the top, the top 4 feet is a solid steel panel. So you can't just shimmy up and hop over the top. So I think they like it because they have seen that it works. So I'm not deeply disappointed that we are stuck with that. It's a decent model that works and has been proven effective.
Good. So, but you guys are hearing not a blanket negativity from the Secretary. You guys are hearing I think a solid, sober analysis of what's really going on. Making progress, but not enough. Not enough. It's too slow. So what can be done? I know you've got your project where you're trying to at least get something up in terms of a crowdfunding effort. Give us a little bit on that.
So yeah, that effort started as a GoFundMe, raised $20 million in 20 days. Most contributions ever in any GoFundMe
with Brian Kolfage, who
the Air Force veteran,
wonderful guy.
Yes, and he is he's still heading the effort. He just said, look, let's instead of writing a blank check to the federal government, which there's no way you can bind them to spend it on the wall.
Right.
Let's just create a private effort and recruit private landowners and build on their land. So we are doing that.
Okay.
Best case scenario, we might be able to build 50 miles in the next year. Now that's best case scenario. The other thing I think that needs to be done is state efforts.
Okay, talk to us about this because you're an attorney. People don't know this. You're a highly educated guy, and you're an attorney, and you're a doctor as well.
It's PhD.
So so you've got the intellectual heft behind this. So talk to us about what can be done legally with the states.
So the states I would be looking at would be the states that have the greatest amount of land that is state land on the border, and that would be California, Arizona, and Texas. Now, California being California, let's just, Sacramento's probably not going to help us. But let's look at Arizona and Texas, where you have Republican legislatures. Those states have huge swaths of state land, state park along the border. And if they chose to, they could pass bills saying, we will build with state money similar bollard fences along our state, and that could give hundreds of miles of additional fencing along the Texas border and along the Arizona border. Arizona's already passed one law several years ago to encourage the building of state-financed walls.
So what's the timetable on some of that stuff?
It all depends on the state legislatures. They're meeting in session right now. I don't know if there are bills currently pending. I hope there are. I know that legislators in Texas are talking about it, and the Texas Attorney General has been talking about it. Paxton and the governor,
Yes.
And the lieutenant governor. So I know Texas is talking about it, but we need, at this point, more than talk. We need to get the dollars spent and the ground broken to build those.
We need to get going because this is the signature campaign issue.
It is.
For the president. It's the signature issue facing the United States.
And it's why he won the Rust Belt states.
Right.
Let's just cut to the chase.
Yes, it is.
You're not going to win the White House by convincing Kansas to vote red again or by convincing New York to vote blue again. You're going to win the White House by, the president is, by convincing Ohio, Florida, and one of either Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin.
Those blue-collar workers, those rank-and-file Americans, the president has your back. That's the message. And how can you make the case with the border open? So he's got to show some progress. Yeah. He doesn't have to finish it. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying if there's not 1,800 miles, it's a lost cause, but I'm saying that we need to get something substantial, and it's going to be... Let's go to the emergency declaration.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dumb talking points, frankly, by folks like, I think it was Julian Castro, who was saying that, well, now the Democrats are just going to do a bunch of emergency declarations, as if it took the president creating the precedent for the Democrats to start behaving lawlessly. Like, that's of course that's not the point. Let's talk about the facts of the emergency declaration. What is your viewpoint on this? Is it legal? Do you think it's a long slog to get it to hold up in the courts? What is your perspective?
So I do think the president, his use of the National Emergencies Act of 1976 will succeed. And the point that is being made by Mr. Castro and others, apparently they haven't done their homework. Look, we have had 58 national emergencies already declared.
And half are still active.
And 31 are still active. So his threat, well, there'll be lots of emergencies declared by Democrat presidents. Well, guess what? There already are.
Yes.
And I brought a couple of examples with me. Did you know that of the 31 national emergencies that we already have in effect, perhaps you didn't remember, but in 2006, Bush declared a national emergency about what? About fraud in the Belarus election.
My goodness.
That was a big one. And in 2015, President Obama declared a national emergency regarding what? A failed coup in Burundi. Now, these things had no tangible impact on the lives of Americans.
It's a national emergency.
Right. But so the notion that we might declare too many national emergencies on things that aren't really national emergencies.
Ridiculous.
In contrast, the crisis at the border is a national emergency. Thousands of Americans are dying every year because of either homicides committed against them by illegal aliens or drunk driving, other traffic accidents by illegal aliens. We know this. The Angel families are a perfect example of this. That is a national emergency. The thousands upon thousands of pounds of drugs coming in, killing Americans. That's a national emergency. The terrorists coming in, national emergency. The tax burden that we all feel because of illegal immigration.
But again, timetable. The courts are essentially mini legislatures, and they want to stop the president.
In some districts, yeah.
In some districts. So the effort is going to be robust to stop this by any means necessary, because the left knows what we know, which is this is a silver bullet for the president. If he gets a substantial wall up, he's going to cakewalk in 2020 unless the Democrats field someone spectacular. If he doesn't get the wall up, the Democrats have a chance. So they know this as well as we do. They're going to do everything they can to stop it. Can they kick the can long enough that they can claim they stopped the wall?
They will claim that they stopped the wall, or that the Democrats will claim to their donors and to their base that they stopped the wall. It'll all depend. I mean, it's semantics. If they let's say best case scenario for the Democrats, they get in front of a super liberal judge in the Northern District of California. The judge issues a preliminary injunction, and the Democrat lawyers are able to delay the case. Their objective is get a preliminary injunction and then delay. And so let's say they get that. I think they won't be able to delay too long. Let's say we get a final decision in the next 6 months out of one court, then the administration's attorneys in the Department of Justice will move immediately to expedite the case, either to the Court of Appeals, or they may even try. They'll expedite to the Court of Appeals and then try to get the Supreme Court to take it on an expedited basis. Maybe best case scenario, it gets to the Supreme Court. I want to say 16 months from now. So in the run-up to the election, but they still won't be a Supreme Court opinion, I don't think, by the election. It's really hard to get a quick opinion out of the Supreme Court when a case comes out like this. It's possible. It's possible that the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will rule in the president's favor. I'm absolutely certain of this because the law is so clear. And it's not just the National Emergencies Act. There are other statutes as well that empower him to move other funds, to use Department of Defense funds to secure the border against drug trafficking and to secure the border for the nation's defense.
So Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, a last note today, the data's back in on the travel ban, and it's been wildly effective. And I'm sure you have some of the details details on this, some of the specifics, but a big picture, this was one of the things the president was hammered on, and it worked.
Yeah, it worked, and it was legal. And any person, a non-lawyer reading the law can say, yeah, that's pretty clear. The president has the authority to declare that certain individuals coming to the United States present a threat, and he can exclude them. The Supreme Court came to the obvious conclusion, yes, he can certainly do this. He's going to win on the National Emergencies Act, too. Look, there are conservatives and there who say, yeah, gosh, the National Emergencies Act, that really does give the president broad authority, and maybe the legislature shouldn't have given the executive this authority. I agree. That's a reasonable argument to make, that the act shouldn't have conveyed. You could try to convince me that maybe it should be tightened, because right now it basically says whatever a president thinks is a national emergency is a national emergency. Sure. And that's why the Burundi coup was declared a national emergency by Obama, the failed coup. But that's an argument for the Congress to have in redefining the National Emergencies Act going forward. Right. But the way it is right now, it's so broad. The president is on solid ground.
Good. And look, I wish it didn't come to this. I wish they could have just passed legislation in January of 2017 on this topic, but they didn't do it. And I'm glad the president's doing what he can, and I'm glad you're doing what you can. Did you have a website or anything you want to throw out?
ChrisKobach.com, where they can read my Breitbart articles and read some other stuff that I've got up there.
And we love having you in our stable of intellects. It's why we're so formidable. Guys like you, Secretary of State.
Thank you.
Chris Kobach, and the most knowledgeable guy on the border, period, along with our own Brandon Darby. I would say those two. You guys are the two guys I would go to, bar none, and my pal in court.
Brandon knows his stuff, no doubt about it.
He sure does. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm happy you made it.
Is Billy over?
Great seeing you. Yeah, great to see you in person.
I
didn't see him.
Probably in another hour or so.
Need something? What's up?
Can I just come on out? I know who's busy.
Yeah. What do you need?
I just want to say hi.
Oh. You know Jenny? Alex?
Yeah, I've worked with Alex. Tell him I worked with Alexandra.
Hi. Oh, Jenny, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Just keep in mind, I would love to get eventually where's Steve Runabeck, one of the Angel Dads on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow.
He's with We Build a Wall. With Alex Marlow.
Have you been on with me before, Steve? No. You haven't?
I've sent stuff to Paul, but
okay.
I know you guys get inundated.
Global News Network of Breitbart.com. This is Breitbart News Daily with Alex Marlow on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
So we're back live here at Breitbart News Daily. Alexander Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart.com. Join now on our Facebook page and on the front page of Breitbart.com as well with my pal, Alfredo Ortiz. You've been on a number of times, sir. Great to see you in person. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we got a lot to talk about. You are one of the economic gurus on the right, and I want you to see what shirt I'm modeling today.
I love it.
Never socialist.
Excellent.
This is our high-quality, made-in-America Breitbart product line, and I've been hawking it partially because it's a great way to support Breitbart, but this is becoming, this election cycle, 2020, is becoming a referendum on socialism.
Absolutely.
This is the fight we want.
Yep, absolutely. And this is the fight we'll win, because this country is not all ready, nor do they want socialism. They don't understand, actually, those folks who actually support it, I don't think actually understand what socialism is. That's why we have our campaign going on, and we say socialism takes, but capitalism creates.
That's right. And that is the whole model of capitalism, is a creator's market, a creator's economy. It encourages the entrepreneurial spirit, the rugged individualism.
It's about liberty.
It's about liberty. Socialism is about the collective. Socialism is about groupthink. Socialism is about taking from others. That is the guiding light. So Job Creators Network, one of the essential groups out there, and you've got a campaign taking on AOC with thegreenrawdeal.com, and you're giving her a hard time for the Green New Deal, for blowing the Amazon deal. You've got a few billboards out there. Talk to us about this campaign.
Yeah, so we started really with the billboard that talks about the Amazon pullout.
Sure.
25,000 to up to 40,000 jobs, sounds like, is what Amazon was saying. But loss of about $4 billion to $6 billion in lost wages for New Yorkers, which is unbelievable. And we estimate about $12 billion in lost economic activity. What is that economic activity? Think about it. That's all these small business owners that would have gone to serve, the headquarters and to actually serve all the folks around that. We're talking the dry cleaners, the pizza guys, you name it. I mean, these are the things that were actually going to be lost now that this pullout actually happened. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's a lost opportunity for all those small business owners who are celebrating the American dream.
I'm clumsily showing the billboards to those of us. I'm kind of tuning out here, which is probably bad. It was a good try. It was a good try. But let's talk about the 25,000 jobs that she almost single-handedly killed with Amazon. And I kind of wonder.
I mean, remember, she's the one that spiked the football on Valentine's, saying we did it.
She was
celebrating.
She declared victory on this front, and this is one where I'm not a massive Amazon fan. I think they're probably the most benign of the tech giants, but they're all left of center. Jeff Bezos is starting to banning some right of center books from the Amazon store. So I'm not an Amazon groupie by any means, but I get the impression you don't tell Jeff Bezos where and when he can't do business and with whom. That seems to be the commonality. And when you have this concerted effort to shame him for coming to your city and bringing tens of thousands of jobs, him saying, I changed my mind, I'm out of here, doesn't surprise me at all. And now the left has to own this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and we want to make sure we're not here at all defending Amazon.
Sure.
Because that's not really what it's about. We're defending this idea of free enterprise.
That's right.
And so, and how socialism takes, and clearly this is a great example, and we're excited to actually highlight it because it shows to America what happens when socialism gets out of control.
Yeah.
And this was a clear example of that. I mean, I was on an interview with CNBC, and I was talking with Andrew Ross Sorkin and Joe Kernan, and I jokingly said, never. I'm in bizarro world because I never actually thought that I'd be on the same side of the aisle on a topic as President Trump, Andrew Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, Andrew Ross Sorkin, and ourselves. But in this particular case, we really are, because we're all shaking our heads going, what were they thinking? What was she thinking? And then to celebrate the loss of 25 to 40,000 jobs. And I mean, think about the union jobs and
and how many billions of dollars of income.
Yeah, I mean, it was simple math, right? Again, I'm not a math major.
Sure.
And maybe $3 billion wasn't great. Maybe it could have been $2 billion. President Trump probably says, I could have done that for $1 billion, right? But the idea was you had $30 billion in revenues expected, minus the $3 billion incentives, which there wasn't a check there that they could write to something else, but that still netted $27 billion in revenues to the state of New York. I mean, that just makes no sense. And then you talk about the wages on top of it, the affiliated economic activity.
Yes.
And remember that there were other vendors that would have come to help service, Amazon as well. All of that's lost. And so, again, we hate crony capitalism. I think everybody, probably all the listeners would agree.
Of course.
We hate that, right? But this wasn't actually about crony capitalism. This was about a free enterprise system. I mean, obviously, the two key chief executives of the state and of the city, Cuomo and de Blasio, they thought it was a good idea. And they're not exactly, bastions of conservatism there. They thought it was a good deal. And what I don't understand, and it's clear why we have such an issue here with AOC, is that she put her will above the will of the people. 70+% of the people in New York wanted that deal. Yes. And so, but she decided she didn't think it was a good idea. And what I wonder, would it have been that difficult for her to pick up the phone? Had a conversation with Cuomo and de Blasio and say, hey, guys, maybe we can work something out a little bit better. Can we get Amazon back and some of the representatives? I can guarantee you reasonable people can come up to reasonable solutions. They didn't have to lose those 25,000+ jobs just to prove that point.
So Alfredo Ortiz is my guest, Job Creators Network president and CEO, and a regular on our shows and on our pages at Breitbart.com. One of the clear-minded folks on economic issues. What was the specific objection? I can barely wrap my head around it as someone who one of my top issues is holding the tech giants accountable for their monopolistic tendencies and practices. And I don't see it. I don't see what was the logic here.
Well, like I said, I mean, neither did Andrew Ross Sorkin, which is usually there. Yes. He's usually on the other side of the aisle on all of our topics, right? He didn't either. He goes, I don't understand. Yes, maybe $3 billion was a little rich. Maybe it should have been $2 billion.
Yeah.
But you had $30 billion coming in for that. Of tax revenue, and then you had all the jobs that were coming in as well. I mean, so again, it just makes no sense whatsoever. And right now, AOC is basically that typical Washington politician,
right?
That really is now putting her interests above the interests of the people. And so it's kind of ironic because she's a socialist, self-proclaimed socialist. Yet she's doing again what every single politician, especially on the Dem side, goes up and goes and lies to the American public about what they really are and what they represent.
That's the theme here, and the Green New Deal is a perfect example of this, and that's her big project. That
you've seen the numbers. I mean, $53 trillion up to 90-something trillion dollars.
I will tell you, Alfredo, John Carney, our economic and finance editor, believed there might not be enough money on planet Earth to pay for the Green New Deal. Like literally, if you round it up, if you took everyone, grabbed them by their ankles, turned them upside down, and shook them so that every penny fell out, we might not get to the number that it would take. And yet AOC claims we're going to make it all back sixfold.
Right. Which, again, I don't even understand. I mean, economics from BU, summa cum laude. I mean, I just don't understand how she doesn't see this. Makes absolutely no sense. You had Chairman Powell basically saying, hey, look, I'm going to say basically we're not going to be printing for these kinds of spending programs. We're not going to be printing money for it. We know what happens when politicians overpromise in terms of things for free just so that they can get elected and stay in power. It's called Venezuela.
Right.
That's exactly what happened there, and they printed money, and look where they are today.
So never socialist. We're against socialism. Explain to us socialism. Explain to us in a nutshell what it is that the left is trying to import into the United States.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So the left, I think, has defined, especially for our millennials, socialism equals social good. That's how I think they're selling it in the minds of people. Oh no, socialism it's about social good for everybody.
Yes.
It's about equality for everybody. But it's exactly the opposite. It's not about equality. It's about taking away your freedoms to choose to do what you want, be as successful as you want, for being ashamed for being successful, and basically saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, you may have worked really hard and come from nothing, but we really don't care because now you are too successful.
Are they still letting you on TV, Alfredo? You're so good.
Are they still letting me on TV?
Yes. Normally you can't be this smooth and get invited back on left-wing shows, I've noticed.
Well, it's interesting. We'll see. It was my first time on CNBC. So we'll see
I hope they have you back because this is you're a great spokesman for these values. So
look, I want to make this point. I came from nothing. I grew up poor in San Diego, Chula Vista, California.
Yeah.
My dad was a tailor. My mom was a housekeeper. I literally literally cleaned other people's crap. Okay.
Wow.
And we used to go on trash day. My mom and I would go around on trash day, collect and go through trash cans and collect aluminum cans and newspapers and cash those in at the YMCA. And that was our grocery money for the week. So I know what it's like to be poor, but my mom loved this country. She died a few years ago. And frankly, I buried her with the American flag because she loved this country. She loved this belief that, frankly, if through hard work, you can achieve anything you want. She'd be rolling in her grave right now if she knew the kind of conversations. And I salute and applaud the president for, at his State of the Union, drawing that line in the sand that we will not be a socialist country.
So Alfredo, I've never talked to you about immigration. I don't need to know your specific immigration position, but folks like me who are very hardcore on immigration, which is a strict enforcement of borders, and we're only adding immigrants who want to assimilate, want to be a part of the American dream, and yet people on the left are very comfortable bringing in, and some folks in the business first right want to bring in people who might not have the American values. And to me, I'm called a racist for believing that. But the point is it has zero to do with skin tone. I wouldn't want to import, if we had a factory of Harvard professors south of the border who all had the skin tone that's exactly my skin tone, I wouldn't want to import them because we don't share the same values. So there's zero race component to this. I'm very concerned about people coming into the country, coming into the system, who don't understand the American values of economic freedom.
It's interesting. I actually think that the folks who are coming over, again, they're illegal, so let's put that set aside. Yes. But from a value standpoint, they're willing to risk their lives to come over because they believe that there's an American dream. There's no Nicaraguan dream. There's no Venezuelan dream. There's no Mexican dream. There's only the American dream.
It's not a Cuban dream?
No, there isn't. That's why they come over here. Look, we're not losing people to them.
Yes.
Right? They're fleeing socialism.
Right.
And we understand. I actually, Alex, have an interesting thought. Yes. I want to offer up a citizen swap.
Okay.
All those socialists that are Americans here in the United States.
Oh, cool. I like
hate our country so much, that are trying to drive socialism into our country. Let's line them up at the border with people who love American dreams, who love freedom, who love liberty, who are trying to escape that and flee over here, and let's swap them one for one.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not a zero immigration guy because if they're going to add to the pie, if they want to be here, not just for economic reasons because they want to take advantage of the system, but because they like American values, all for it. Let's just at least sign the guest book.
They got to do it right. They got to do it right the right way. But I would rather have people who believe in our core values.
Yes.
We're one nation under God, Christianity, hard work, entrepreneurialism. I'll take those guys versus any of these other socialists in our country.
Be a great
that are pushing.
Let's do it. Bernie Sanders is such an admirer of all these totalitarian socialist states. He should be first on the list.
He can be first on the list.
He can be first on the list
and guide everybody across along with AOC.
Yeah. Okay. So Alfredo Ortiz. By the way, folks, the last slot was supposed to be for Candace Owens today. She's on the main stage. Shockingly, CPAC might be running a little bit behind. That's not the CPAC I know. So I don't know if she's going to make it. So we'll have a little more time for some phone calls after this. We actually have a caller making exactly this point that we'll get to. Alfredo, you've got the Billboard campaign, and I'm a talk radio guy. And I mean, some of these old school methods of getting the message out still the most effective.
I think they're still the most effective. I mean, the kind of feedback and the kind of coverage we've gotten off those billboards has been off the charts. I mean, we truly have gone global from this perspective. And I think that's because people are saying they're cheering for us, right? Yeah. They're cheering for this fight. Kudlow said this best on stage yesterday. We're putting socialism on trial.
Yes,
and that's what 2020 is going to be about. And we're gonna fight as hard as we can. AOC and her team and her supporters, they want to shut us up. They've gone against me personally. They're trying to attack our supporters who are successful, hardworking American dream stories in our country. Right? Go ahead and attack us for that. We are proud that we've been able to get the support from, frankly, Americans across the spectrum, small, medium, large, in terms of levels of success. They just believe in this idea of liberty and freedom, and that's what we're fighting for. And this message is to AOC and all of our supporters: we are not going to go away. We're not going to be silenced, and we're going to keep on fighting this fight as long as we can.
So give me your last question for today. Give me your thoughts on the economy in general, how we're doing. There's a lot more jitters this time around, but the data keeps coming back okay. Where are we at?
Look, I mean, if you had listened to the media on the left, the last month of last year, you would have thought we were heading straight into a recession.
Yeah.
You've seen the retail numbers.
That's right.
We've seen the GDP growth numbers. It's almost un-American to think of what they're doing. They're rooting for basically failure.
Yes.
Of some of the greatest things that we've seen so far in these past 2 years. And really it comes from less government, less regulation, less red tape, right? And lower taxes. Yeah. This has literally been what's unleashed the American economy. It's unleashed this idea of entrepreneurialism. We remember under the Obama administration, we were actually at a point where more businesses were being closed than open. And now all that's reversed. Business optimism is sky high. Small businesses, which we represent, 30 million of them across the country, employing 60 million hardworking Americans.
Yes.
They've never felt better about business overall. They're hiring people. They want to pay them higher wages. I mean, we are in a thriving economy. We just hit 3.1% for the year of 2018 based on numbers coming out from, with Kudlow. He mentioned that as well.
Right.
And Kevin Hassett. I mean, these are great, fantastic numbers.
Yes, numbers that we were told by our establishment press were impossible.
Impossible to have. Remember, manufacturing jobs, according to Obama, we're never going to come back to this country. And look at that. We've had 340,000, I think, manufacturing jobs created in the past 2 years. And these are from, West Virginia, Cincinnati. I mean, these are hardworking Americans who are now finally having that belief that the American dream is true for them again. And again, we couldn't be more excited at Job Creators Network, to fight for.
Alfredo Ortiz, let's plug these websites again one more time. I want people to know everything you're up to.
Great. JobCreatorsNetwork.com. It's JobCreatorsNetwork.com. They can sign up and get more information on that. Even if they have $1 or $2 to give us, we would appreciate that, right? We need that support. And TaxCutsWork.com is another site that we run, which actually shows how people are benefiting from the Tax Cut and Jobs Act.
Sure.
Because not only did they have more money that they could keep all year long, right, instead of these interest-free loans that, as I call them, to the government, but they're also getting the refund checks.
Right.
And so when you look at them combined, they are much better off today than they were under the Obama.
Yeah, the refunds are catching back up. And what's interesting is this was another media spin. The media created this outrage that the government wasn't confiscating as much of our money up front, that we were giving the government a interest-free loan, essentially, and then they give us money back at tax time. They were letting us keep the money in our pocket more, and so we're supposed to be outraged.
Yeah, it's always been our money, and the only thing that I'm saying is on the Tax and Jobs Act, Americans are able to spend more of their money, keep more of their money throughout the year, and also get this refund at the end. So we were excited to be part of that fight.
Alfredo, keep up the good work.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Sirius XM Patriot 125.
Well, CPAC is livening up with the long security line. If you're not here yet, you should get down here quickly if you're coming to CPAC. Many thanks to all the folks who put the show together. I've actually written it down longhand with the help of senior producer Greg, Tom McDonald, Greg Sahakian, who's little boss, Liz Aiello, who's a medium boss, Matt Purdy, our videographer, Paul D'Amelio, who's our producer, Greg Evan, our senior producer, Justin Blasi, who's our on-site engineer, and Connor and Shane working the show in New York, as well as Ian Hanchett for Breitbart, who helps us pull clips. All of that goes into the show. Cool stuff here, and the live broadcast from CPAC continue. Webb comes next, Will Cow after that, and we're back tomorrow with Matt Boyle's Saturday broadcast, Breitbart News Saturday, and we'll have live updates throughout the day at Breitbart.com. Let's go to Al in Michigan on line 6. Al, what's going on? Al.
Hey, Alex. I'm there in spirit in CPAC. That guy Alfredo was fantastic, and you make an excellent point that these socialists, and Larry Kudlow said the same thing, let's put socialism on trial. People like AOC and Bernie, they're more like fans of socialism because they don't live it, they don't practice it, they just talk about it.
That's right.
And if I go to a Major League Baseball game and sit in the stands, I don't say that I'm playing, and I'm not a player. So until they're living it, I don't want to hear another peep out of them.
Yes, it is they have got to they have to prove that this is beyond something theoretical, right, Al? They've got to prove that there's some teeth behind it.
Right. They're fans of what they think it should be. That's meaningless. Go show what it is. You know, it's always about how they feel and what they think. Yeah, but that's not how it is. That's not how it is. Until they see it and live it, drop them off down in Cuba and ask them for go get a Starbucks or go buy a brand new car, and then tell them how it works. And then let's have them tell us how it works.
Yes, the innovative spirit would be utterly sapped if you start talking this way, if you start behaving this way as a society. And there's so many other countries that are trying it. Why can't we have the one country why can't we have this one to try to have the American economic value system? But I got to run. Weber, you set, my friend?
I'm all set.
Thanks, Al. I really appreciate it. Sorry to cut you off there. But the one and only David Webb here. David, you're looking stylish as always.
Well, I'm comfortable. It's radio. And so you look great, man. I mean, we should have worn the same jacket.
David was very upset because apparently he's got the same exact. This is my favorite coat, and I'm happy to have it. We've got a minute to go, Webb. What's up for you today?
Well, let's see. Mark Lauder, Kellyanne Conway, got the VP speaking, of course, at 10:30.
Yes.
A number of other people. Devin Nunes is in the building, so he may stop by. Who knows?
It'd be very good. So what to you is the highlight? What is the about coming down? You're New York based, coming down to CPAC. What do you look forward to this year?
This year, I'm seeing even more diversity. And the fake thing about diversity being outreach to blacks is crap by the Democrats. It's a diverse party that reflects the country. There are people here from all over the place. Ryan, the truck driver, regular caller of the Patriot Channel, he's down here in a suit and tie. I mean, it's everything. Everybody's coming in young, old, both genders. Doesn't matter. The narrative is wrong. CPAC is spreading out around the country, and that's what I like about what they're doing.
Yes, and there is so much low-hanging fruit now because the left is getting so radical. They're getting so polarizing. They're obsessed with smear campaigns. They're forgetting about the first principles that make this country great, and it gives such a wide berth for folks like you and me to pick off new recruits. It's been a fun week, and hopefully you have a great show.
Yeah,
David?
I'm going to try and get Sean Spicer's phone again today.
You should try that.
I'm going to interview his phone.
That would be good. I know that's a regular shtick for you. All right, I'm back tomorrow. I'm back Monday, 6 Eastern, 1 a.m. Hawaiian. Breitbart.com is available 24/7. Thanks for listening.